Yes, folks, we are back and we are live with another leg of the Mainframe Comic-Con. I'm your host with the most, Drew Manchu, baby. And we got a great panel for you guys tonight. These are two really awesome creators. We got David Avallone, who's going to be talking to Ryland Grant about everything that Ryland has going on. These two men are absolute sweethearts who have been endlessly patient with my terrible email chains over the past month, and I really, really appreciate that. Say hello to your host, David Avallone, and
Good
your
evening,
guest
everybody.
of honor, Ringo Award winner, Ryland Grant. I'm getting on your hair, guys, and let you have conversation.
I see Ryland has not loaded yet. Ryland.
He was there a minute ago. Let's take
Yeah,
him off.
I know he's having some website, some Wi-Fi issues.
I think he became a robot.
Yeah. We can talk about what a nice guy he is, though.
We certainly can.
We can talk about my shaved head, which is brand new.
I see you look nothing like your the pictures you sent, your headshot.
I know, and I'm very sensitive to the idea of branding, so I shaved, I think, before I knew I was doing this.
We've got double Ryland, and there we go.
Hey, guys. Yeah.
It looks like you're working now. I will step back and let you gentlemen get to chopping it up about all things Ryland Grant. Big fan
I think
of
I'm
both
having
of
some
y'all, and excited to have you here.
Thank you, Drew.
Howdy, guys.
Hey, Ryland, how are you?
Not too bad. I'm enjoying the quarantine cut.
We were just talking about how I've traded my Jim Gordon cosplay for Lex Luthor cosplay, and I don't know how I feel about it.
That's really funny. I mean, it's I shaved my head for about 17 years, and my wife hated like every minute of it. We've been together for close to 20 now, and so she made me grow it back like pretty recently, a few years back. So like I have this,
Oh wow!
I have more hair now. I have more hair now than I've ever had in my life.
By the way, Ryland and I are we're going to talk exclusively about men's grooming.
Men's grooming, yeah, exactly.
We'll not be talking about comic books at all. Sorry if that's disappointing for everybody.
Speaking of that, like Alec, who was the host on the previous stream, like is clearly winning the quarantine beard competition. I mean, that was like
I saw that.
I've never been more jealous of like a man's facial hair in my life. That was just like and he had kind of like a Jason Momoa thing going on with like the thing on top. Like he was looking slick because I saw him not too long ago at the Baltimore Comic Con. And I think his hair was short. Like I think he was like pretty clean cut and stuff like that. So he's that look is working for him. I'm digging it.
That was the impetus behind this. I realized I'm probably not getting a haircut for another 2 months. So I was like, well, I'll shave it off and it'll very slowly. So now I'm a human chia pet for a couple of months.
Yeah, I wish I could do the beard thing. Like I grow a beard and it kind of looks like pubic hair, and then also I'm starting to. It's the one way in which I think I'm starting to show my age like big time. Is that it gets really gray, and so if I grow a beard, it adds 10 years to my the estimate. So and I guess what I should say is that if it's not clear, Avallone and I are old friends. So this is kind of us just checking in with each other before we get to you guys. So just hang on for a minute.
What did you do before comic books, Ryland? What were you doing before you started writing comic books?
Yeah, so I missed the intro, so I don't know what he covered. Did he introduced me, said what my books were and all that stuff.
Ringo Award. That was about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I my name is Ryland Grant. I was for I have been for about 15 years now a screenwriter in Hollywood. I write mostly big poppy action movies. I've written for Ridley Scott, J.J. Abrams, Luc Besson, Justin Lin, F. Gary Gray.
Losers, bunch of losers that never worked.
Yeah, so, just dirtbags. And so about 4 years ago now, I decided to swerve into the comic lane. Comics are always my first love. And I've had 2 books out now. Banjax, which is the most recent one, kind of like a Death Wish with superheroes, and then the Ringo Award-winning Aberrant, which is kind of a sort of love letter to 70s paranoid spy thrillers.
So much fun. I love that book.
Yeah, thanks.
Someone did ask White Russian and Yes, correct. This is a Caucasian. We have a Caucasian here.
Watch the beverage, man. Yeah.
If there's if there's anything I've learned about doing these, it's day drinking. It's vital to the organization. So what made you jump into comics, and what was what door opened that you were able to walk through?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to get this across without using up all our time. But so it was it was twofold. One, things got a whole lot easier. Like making creator-owned comics got a lot easier. Like I tried to do it in college years ago, but it was like all of the drawing, all the art was physical back then. You had to basically know an artist in your town. Revisions were a pain in the ass, and so basically tried it and fell on my face. Again, comics were my first love. Then I had to settle for this whole fucking movie career thing.
If they were your first love, what was the first comic that you loved? What got you into it?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a complicated question. I mean, I was one of those rubes that what got me into a comic shop was was the death of Superman. That whole collecting boom. But then then once I was in there, I mean, the Image Revolution was happening, and that was very exciting. And but it was really the back issue bins. It's the this whole thing is about kind of giving back to the comics community, and we're trying to support our local comic shops. And it was a very smart, very helpful, very nurturing comic shop owner that showed me the back issue bins. And it was probably the most formative thing was that things like that Demon in the Bottle arc, the Iron Man story.
Sure, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, they took one of their A-listers and made him an alcoholic, like in the 70s. Right. Nobody was doing that. I mean, It was like, before that, it was all point and wink superhero ideals, and it's like, okay, well, let's take this guy who like has a perfect life seemingly, and let's like just smash it to pieces. And so, if you want to kind of loop it back around to my work, Banjax is in a way my answer to Demon in a Bottle. I mean, I've been working on that since I was 15 or something like that. So
you've been working on Banjax since you were 15?
Well, I mean, in a way, you know what I'm saying? It was like the seeds were planted when I was, young and pulled those back issues out. Sure. And it was just like, wow, it's like, because before then, I mean, I think I have a similar story with movies, and I'm sure you do too, because you're a filmmaker and stuff like that. But it was like, you grow up and comics, movies are kind of poppy entertainment for a while, right? And then whatever it is, you see a certain movie, for me, the ones that really grabbed me, Fargo, Boogie Nights, something like that. For comics, it was Demon in the Bottle, and then a lot of those early Vertigo comics. Preacher was a big one, and
sure.
100 Bullets was still probably about my favorite comic book series.
I can see that influence in your work. Actually, that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like you see something like that, and it just fucking grabs you, and it's like, okay, well, this isn't child's play. This isn't just poppy entertainment. I mean, here, I'm not a snob. I'm a guy who gets paid to write big poppy action movies. Give me a Michael Bay movie any day of the week. Like if I'm if I need to choose between writing, between watching, the new Oscar bait or watching Passenger 57 for the 50th time, 200th time probably, I'm going to watch Passenger 57 every day of the week, sure, and twice on Saturday. But sure. So I'm not, I'm not a snob about this, but you see a movie, you see a comic book, and it just grabs you, and you realize that this stuff can be art, that you can actually say something with these things, something important. You can in a very interesting and in-depth way kind of explore the human condition,
sure.
and I was kind of coming,
and that's what Demon in a Bottle taught you.
Yeah, exactly. It was just again, I think that I was just so used to point and wink superhero ideals, these guys who were perfect, and right, and they met a bad guy who wasn't perfect, and if you weren't perfect, you were a bad guy. Right. And so, yeah, you look at Demon in the Bottle, and it's like, okay, well, this guy this guy has some bruises. This guy has some things to overcome.
And I should say, for those who aren't intimately familiar with it, Demon in the Bottle is an Iron Man run where Tony Stark falls completely, rock bottom into alcoholism. And it's a pretty legendary run, but it was a long time ago now. So just in case, and I'm sure it's collected. I'm sure you can find it.
100%. Marvel Unlimited, the whole 9 yards.
Was Aberrant your first comic book series? Ringo Award-winning Aberrant, was that your first?
Ringo Award-winning Aberrant, yes. First comic book series. Like I said, I tried it in college, but Aberrant was the first book, and it was weird because I was I'd written movies for a long time, and I was a good writer, but I had never done a comic book, and so you start to sort of, okay, well, how the hell do I do this? How do I organize this? How do I? And what I needed was some structure. And so I did a very smart thing. I went to my local comic shop. There was this amazing comic shop that I know you love called Meltdown Comics in the heart of Hollywood. It's kind of my
rest in peace, Meltdown.
Yeah, rest in peace. That unfortunately closed its doors a few years ago. But they they had kind of like they had comic classes. They had kind of like a comic making group that's headed up by this old DC editor named Jim Higgins, who's
Jim's a great friend of mine. I love Jim.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And so, I found Jim, and I found, kind of a pack of fellow travelers there that were all kind of interested in making comics and helping me, push this boulder uphill. And so, we carved out this little group, and we kind of figured all this stuff out together. With a lot of help from Jim, who had kind of been around the block 100 times. And I developed Aberrant inside Meltdown.
I did not know that. And how did that transition go for you? I mean, did you find it hard adapting to the format?
Not at all. So it was so invigorating to transition into comics. I
totally agree. I had the same experience.
Well, yeah, and you come from a film background also, so you can probably plug right into this. But Hollywood, particularly the Hollywood that in which I have been, the corner of Hollywood in which I have been backed. They make like 4 different kind of films now, and that's it. And if you don't want to write those films, then there's no place for you. You know what I'm saying? Big superhero things, big action things, heist film, this, that, and the other thing. And they want you to write those films a certain way, and there's no room for, for dancing and bobbing and weaving and messing around and having fun. And so, I wrote for the better part of a decade in Hollywood, and I got really good at writing those films. I could write them in my fucking sleep. I could just phone them in, and they paid for my house.
Sure.
But I feel like we have these little fence posts in our in our careers and our lives, and so at some point, I got to about 10 years, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this for another 10 years. Like it sounds ridiculous sitting there like complaining about getting paid to write movies, because almost anyone would swap places with me.
As Ian Fleming once said, it reads better than it lives.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't happy at the time. I wasn't fulfilled. And so so the beauty of comics is that you can do anything as long as it is entertaining, as long as it grabs the reader, as long as it is good, and in fact, deviating from the norm is celebrated, which I think we saw with the Ringo Awards. And so, so when I didn't just do comics, I did comics almost as like occupational therapy. It was like, so when I sat down, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not just going to do this. It's like, if I'm going to do it, I made a pact with myself that I was never going to tell a straightforward story. And so I was going to double down on experimental elements and unreliable narrators, and I was going to play with time and structure. And I was going to got Tony Fabro calling me. That's fun.
Tony having trouble getting on the stream.
I don't know. Well, yeah,
texting him right before we went live. I got a question from the chat room from Chris Barrett. if you could write any Big Two character, who would you pick?
If I could write any Big Two character, wow. Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's like I feel like my answer is boring for that. You know, I get that question a lot, and then I usually kind of
just give us the honest answer.
Well, what I was going to say is I usually stumble through some Force thing on Moon Knight because that would be a little bit interesting, and I think I'd be a good fit for that. I Iron Man started this whole fiasco, so
sure.
So that would be incredible. But everybody wants to write Iron Man. Everybody wants to write Captain America. I'm more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy. That was just how I grew up.
Sure.
But so my real answer to this question is that if I could write anything, like what would my dream job in comics be? I obviously wouldn't turn a Big Two comic, but the first thing is that I think I was born to write Cobra Kai for IDW. Johnny Lawrence is a spirit animal.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
I think that may have gotten lost in a glitch. What did you say was your dream comic?
Did it get lost in a? Give me 1 second. I have now Tony Fabro is texting me like crazy so I'm going to log out of my messenger. This is what happens when you're streaming from home. I'm actually I was in my office where I have a lot of the stuff that I need. My internet wasn't working back here, and so I have had to retreat to my toddler's room, and so I'm in a 3.5-year-old girl's room right now, speaking to you. So my dream job in the comics business right this minute, not that it won't change or anything, is I believe I was born to write Cobra Kai for IDW. Johnny Lawrence is my spirit animal.
That's great.
The entire Karate Kid, oeuvre has like become part of my soul.
It's okay for the Big Two to not be your goal. I mean, I say that I sort of whisper that at cons, and I'm like, I don't want to be overheard by any Marvel or DC editors saying I really would rather write Betty Page than Batman, but I really would rather write Betty Page than Batman.
Yeah.
There isn't 80 years of Betty Page continuity that I have to struggle with, and other people's story ideas that were pretty great that I have to compete with. There's me and Dave Stevens at this point. And Dave is, God knows, a big gun, but it's nice to not have to be going up against the best stuff that's ever been done in the industry every single time you open your mouth. Galmer said more ragdolls, please, and I promise more ragdolls is absolutely coming anytime soon. So
I don't know if it's apparent, but Gomer is one of the Comic Cast hosts.
Oh, nice.
So I'm repping Comic Cast on here, and I see the comics misexplained. Jason is another Comic Cast host who keeps trying to kick in here with Will the Robot from Rocky IV appear features issues of Banjax, absolutely, and I will find a way to have other Rocky IV references because it's the greatest film that's ever made. Also, please send me the last script for Commando 2. And actually, he set me up pretty good here. And so my other dream job in comics, and you'll appreciate this because this is right up your alley, is I have been working for a couple of years now trying to build this bridge between Hollywood and comics, meaning that again, I think that a Cobra Kai book was a great idea. You take this Karate Kid franchise. They showed that the reboot on YouTube was a great idea, and so of course, like, let's tell more stories in comic form. That's a great idea. And so I have been digging and digging, with all of my kind of studio connections, trying to acquire film properties to bring to life on in comic book form. And so my greatest my greatest dream, even more than Cobra Kai, was I wrote a film for Joel Silver a few years back. Actually, several years back at this point. I'm always minimizing the time, but there was this period of time where I was hanging around, a little bit in Joel Silver's offices, and with a little digging, I became aware of the fact that there is a script that D'Souza wrote for Commando 2, the Arnold,
wow.
A sequel to the Arnold Schwarzenegger epic, the kind of action film that started, it's kind of the granddaddy of 80s action movies, and it is absolutely fucking batshit crazy bonkers. And it ends.
It's not like the first film is a model of sanity and restraint.
Yeah, but this, but if that was like a 5 or a 6, this gets turned up to 11, and it literally ends at a wedding with Arnold Schwarzenegger in a wedding dress, like blowing away bad guys. It was just phenomenal. And so, and so I got this idea when Dark Horse brought that alternate Alien 3 script to life in graphic novel form. I don't want to get too much into the story because we don't have a ton of time, but there was this, Alien 3 got made, but there was this other script that the fans just loved, and it didn't get made. And so finally somebody at Dark Horse, like a lot of smart people at Dark Horse, said, hey, let's make this into a graphic novel. And so I wanted to do that with Commando 2. Commando 2 never got made. It should have.
That's a fantastic. Yeah, it's like IDW doing the Harlan Ellison City on the Edge of Forever script.
Yeah,
as a comic.
By
the way, if anyone wants to see me and Vernon Wells do dramatic readings from Commando, go to YouTube and Google Vernon Wells dramatic readings, and you will find, during a burlesque show, Vernon and I recreated his death scene from Commando.
Wow, that is incredible.
Because we wanted to do something truly ridiculous. We have only 9 minutes left. I want to talk about what you're doing right now. What are you working on now?
I'm working on a gaggle of projects. So I have I basically have 5 other comic projects in the pipe. My real passion, again, getting back to that big 2 question is, I want to do my creator own stuff. I mean, Cobra Kai aside and Commando aside, I have a lot of stories that I want to tell that are, and I would love a bigger stage. So,
sure.
So
anything in the works?
Yeah. Well, it's
when Civilization. Yeah, if Civilization survives the zombie apocalypse, which is obviously a big if right at this exact moment.
I had two that were set to go and set to be announced, and I don't know where those are at. Everybody's pencils down right now. Everybody's reorganizing. Yeah. A lot of things are getting cut, and so the question is, I don't know, but I am stockpiling material. I mean, I'm going to have, I'll have 5 books, and hopefully these things get released sooner rather than later. Hopefully these publishers kind of pick right up where they left off. But I'm doing a varied. I already kind of covered the whole superhero thing. Banjax is almost my answer to like Iron Man or Batman, and Aberrant was kind of my answer to Captain America a little bit. So I've done that. I've been there, and so it is varied. I have kind of like a thriller set in the world of astral projection that is pretty far along. I have a tokusatsu joint that's kind of like Fast and the Furious meets Voltron that I'm really excited about and is almost done. Have like a Fargo-esque small town sheriff's department story that I'm working on. And then,
are you working on these at any specific publishers, or are you working on them and then you're going to bring them to publishers?
Well, again, I had 2 of these books with publishers, and right. and I'm not free to discuss that right now. Sure. The other ones are, the other ones are in various stages. I'm doing this pretty cool big time sci-fi thing with an old artist friend of yours, Cuber Ball.
Sure. Cuber did Betty Page.
Yeah.
And he's an incredible artist.
Yeah, he's a great artist, and he gushes about you.
Terrific artist. I couldn't have been happier with his work for me.
Yeah, Cuber is definitely like a partner in crime. He's kind of one of my running mates, and so we have a couple of things on irons in the fire, and you will see those sooner rather than later. The other thing that's going on is Aberrant was nominated for won a Ringo Award last year. Was nominated for 2 others. Banjax is up for nominations right now, and everyone watching this stream, you get a vote. You get to decide who gets nominated, and so if you want to hop on RingoAwards.com and nominate Banjax and Ryland Grant in the appropriate categories, I would really appreciate that.
Fantastic idea.
Fantastic
someone
idea.
Did at Cheers to Comics podcast asked, when am I getting Drawing Blood 2 from Kickstarter? Ben is drawing the second of 4 chapters. I've written 3 out of 4. So give Ben another couple of months to draw and me another month. And so probably sometime this summer, that'll hit. Can we get a song? Is that usual in these? I know I occasionally sing with Shaken at conventions, but
yeah, you sing with Shaken, and I sing a lot on my Instagram. What do you? Yeah. It looks like the moderators are going to jump in, but maybe we could. What do you? You got a song in mind?
We've got 5 minutes left, as far as I know.
What's it? I see. I have a minute on the thing, but
Okay.
What should we sing?
But what are you? That's funny. Kevin Eastman is in the.
Kevin Eastman 5 minutes.
In the waiting room, and he literally just texted me, "Nice haircut."
Nice haircut. Yeah, you're getting the. I feel like
we're about. Not used to seeing me look like Lex Luthor.
Kevin Eastman. Kevin Eastman.
Can we do
Kevin Eastman.
I'm embarrassed that I don't know the lyrics to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles song. Maybe Kevin will stop speaking to me because I said that I admitted that out loud. And I don't know that we want to owe Chuck Lorre.
Taught them to be ninja team.
I don't know that we want to owe Chuck Lorre $15 for singing that out loud.
When the evil Shredder attacks, these turtle boys don't cut them no slack.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That is that. So you got your singing. Will there be more? Will there be more Aberrant? Will there be more Banjax?
I don't know about Aberrant. There could be more Aberrant. Aberrant was very quickly optioned for television by Tony Krantz, who did 24 and Felicity and a number of things like that. So Aberrant is now being developed as a TV series. So in that case, obviously you want a TV series to go 5 seasons, 7 seasons, something like that. So there'll be a lot more Aberrant that way. And if Aberrant's on TV, I'm sure there will be more books. Banjax, I still owe 4 more issues.
Oh, nice.
So it is. It was.
How many will that make total? I lost
track. There were 10 of Aberrant. The first volume of Banjax was 4, and so there'll be 4 more. And so, I always leave it open ended, but looks like we're about to get kicked off here. Yeah.
Oh, and I just want to make sure that everybody in the chat knows that we can get more David later on tonight on Mainframe Comic-Con. David's going to be part of our artist and writer relationship panel, and that is at what time did I schedule that for? I don't know what time.
8 o'clock Pacific.
8 o'clock Pacific. 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and an hour before that, at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Ryland will be hosting a panel for us about publishing your first book, that first big book.
I'll watch that.
You want to get published, so you're going to get more Ryland tonight, and then more David immediately after. Thank you so much for coming and giving us a really great conversation.
Yeah.
We got you guys were singing his theme song just mere moments before Kevin Eastman.
I have a text here from Kevin. I'm assuming this is his wife Courtney saying Kevin loved the singing.
Nice. Incredible.
I know I love the singing. I know our next co-hosts absolutely love the singing. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on.
Our pleasure.
Everybody, go vote for Banjax for the Ringo this year. Let's get that thing another Ringo. Give this guy a trio of Ringos.
I was gonna say,
let him wear a string of Ringos around his neck. Thank you so much, guys, and we will definitely catch you later.
Ciao.
Thank you. Guys, our next guest is a huge get for the people of this community. Everybody loves this guy. Nobody loves him more than my friend Carson. Carson, I'm going to let you take over on this one, buddy, and I'm going to get the heck out of here.
Well, thanks for that warm introduction, Drew. You guys been killing it backstage here all day, so big thanks to Chad and Drew for holding it down, Mainframe Comic-Con. But I also want to take a quick second to remind everybody we're here for the HeroInitiative.org and the Red Cross, so be sure to check those links below and donate to both of those causes. I'm going to introduce my co-host for this next segment first. We're welcoming back Alec, Whitewell Comics. How you doing, Alec?
Doing great. How are you? I'm unreasonably excited for this, but I'm sure not as excited as you are.
Well, I'm not going to BS any longer. I want to welcome the guy who's probably responsible for most of our childhoods, Mr. Kevin Eastman. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks. So happy to be here with you guys, hanging out in the Mainframe Comic-Con. This is awesome. Pleasure.
That's our pleasure for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just gotta say for a second, my whole childhood, first toys I ever bought, TMNT, man. So big thanks for joining us. But I'm sure you got plenty of everything you want to talk about. The first question I wanted to get into, and chat, if you guys got questions, feel free to throw them in. I'll try to get to them the best I can. But I wanted to talk about The Last Ronin because I've been into the IDW stuff you guys have been putting together. And I got to hear a pitch about The Last Ronin, and it sounded really awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about this project coming up this summer, hopefully?
Sure, thanks. And again, thrilled to be here with you guys, hanging out on set. Happy Saturday. I got my glass of wine, and so I'm going to make it super extra
awesome.
One of the coolest things in my recent history was working with the incredible Tom Waltz for the last 9+ years on the Turtles IDW ongoing comic series. I mean, I love the series. It's probably the closest thing that I would ever equate to what you know. Set aside the black and white series of Peter and I. This to me was the closest version of that. In that it was intended for the older fans. And its intensity, its tonality, everything was sort of right there where those original fans of the TMNT would want it to be. And so we had such an successful run. I mean, when we got to issue 50, it was sort of mind-blowing to us in every way. And then to deliver issue 100, it was such a fantastic team of artists. And of course, everybody at IDW, Bobby Curnow, and so many others make that all possible. That was such a milestone, and that as we kind of approached issue 100, Tom and I started talking about The Last Ronin probably about a year beforehand. And The Last Ronin is based on an idea Peter and I had written an outline. It was about 20 pages, beginning, middle, and end structure, and it was written in 1987. And it's something that we always wanted to do together. And Pete's more retired now than ever before, and really didn't want to sort of step back into the limelight with this kind of thing. So I asked if I could adapt this with Tom and take that original structure that was set 30 years in the future in 1987. So what's hilarious is that it would have been set 2017. So 2 years, now, well, wasn't 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so I worked through a couple of versions of the notes of what I wanted to do with the redraft of it. Structurally, brought Tom in earlier last year, around January of last year, and we spent the entire year sort of pulling it together as what we thought would make a good story, not only respectful to the original idea, but something that we would place in a Turtle universe that would be, I guess you'd relate it to Dark Knight, only in the sense that it's edgy and it's intense, and it's sort of a netherworld as a Turtle universe. It's not the IDW universe or any of the other Turtle universes, but it's definitely closest to the original Mirage universe. So we want to keep it sort of character focused. It's set 20 years in the future from today, so it's 2040. Basically, we don't ever really say that story. So yeah, it's been under development for quite a while, and we started work on it earlier this year in earnest once we got the okay from Nickelodeon, and Tom and I are working away furiously. Andy Kuhn is working away as well. He'll be the main series artist based on my layouts and that kind of stuff. But it's going to be something that is written for, I guess, Tom and I. I'm a huge fan of Tom. Tom's a big fan of mine, so we kind of wrote this for ourselves with homage and respect to the incredible Peter Laird, and we think we're going to do everybody involved some justice, and I think the fans are going to be pretty thrilled when they see it.
Awesome. And I was also going to ask about the IDW series because obviously it's been going on for a while. It's maybe, in my opinion, my new favorite version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When you guys started this thing, I think it was in 2011, if I remember right. Did you guys plan this whole story arc all the way through till now? Or have you guys just been kind of building and building and building upon the success of this whole arc?
It's a great question because it was, when I was brought into it, Tom Waltz had already been brought fully on board, and he had written a scenario that was approved by Nickelodeon where, of what he wanted to see this universe, which was sort of creating a platform where you could tell a lot of different stories and pull from multiple turtle universes, like whether it be the Archie series. One of Tom's favorite turtle series was the Fox Kids 2000 series, which was kind of the edgier turtle series that ran then. But we sort of could pick from all these things, and so we sort of laid out this basic platform, including the reincarnation aspects and some other things, some other changes that were pretty ballsy. I was like, dude, I just love this. I adore this. And again, it was all directed to have that same edge as the original black and white comic. I said, if we can get past the first year, if the fans don't find our home addresses and tar and feather us and run us out of town because it was some pretty risky bits in there, I said they're going to buy into it, and I hope they buy into it because I think it's really fabulous. And you guys stepped up in such a huge way that get to year one with the incredible Dan Duncan as a series artist, those first 12 issues. And then we were starting to look, okay, we looked to the next year. And then luckily the fan support was as strong and the sales stayed strong. So then we could plan a little bit further out. So I think by the time we got into, halfway through year 2, almost into year 3, we said, let's shoot for issue 50 and hope and pray we can make it issue 50, because that would be awesome.
And
so that's
leapfrogged that pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's your fault. Thank you.
What a strange sentence. It's your fault. Thank you.
But no, that was what was fantastic. By the time we got to issue 50, it was just one of those, pinch yourself, where it's like, this has been great. We've been doing this, and we really felt like the characters that had been brought from other universes and re-involved and reimagined, as well as the new characters like Old Hob and so many others. He said, all right, let's go crazy and let's shoot to where we would like to be at issue 100, and then do one of those lots of finger crossing and praying. Man, you guys showed up, and we had such a blast. That was, I do, and I brag about Tom a lot because I think he's, look, you had making a comic book. It takes a village, as you guys well know, and it's like, we've got, say my input and the incredible series editor who for the same 100 issues as Bobby Turnow. We had, these fantastic array of artists, everybody from Mateus Santuclo to Dan Duncan originally, Corey Smith. I know I'm going to fit, there's so many others that really, Michael Delanis, on and on, that brought these stories to life, that it really was one of those things that, it was just the greatest adventure. It was like bringing me back to Turtles in a new way, when I thought every Turtle story, had ever had been told, and 300 cartoon shows and all those original movies and all the different series. But these young guys and these artists brought together. But yeah, Tom has accomplished what I think is the definitive Turtle universe in comic series, in my opinion. Kudos to Tom. He should have a tick parade for that.
Yeah. So I'm sure Carson has infinite more questions, and we have some great ones coming from the chat. I'd just like to squeeze my one question in before we get to those. First of all, I met you a number of years ago at the Boston Comic Con. It was an absolute delight. You drew Krang in my hardcover, and you were so excited when I asked for a Krang, and I tell people all the time that you are a pleasure to meet. But my question is that so many properties kind of on paper similar to the Turtles that came out around the time the Turtles did for the cartoon. What do you think contributed to the longevity of Turtles versus a lot of the other stuff back then?
It comes down to I guess I always point it back to the fans, because it's one of those things that it just as easily could have failed. I remember people asked me about my favorite spin-off around that time, adjective, noun, so the title. And the first one that came out was Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, which I thought was hilarious. And there were a number of other ones that I thought were great and very clever. And I think a lot of those artists were similar to Peter and I, that wanted to just break into the business. And that, it's, for the longest time the only options were Marvel or DC. There were a number of really small self-publishers, mostly underground self-publishers, Kitchen Sink Press, Rip Off, and Pacific Comics and Capital Comics that were emerging around that time. But it was hard to find your foot in the door. So, we sort of all appreciated our sort of what we call ground level, because you had Marvel and DC, mainstream, and then you had undergrounds, and then the sort of the ground level ones just trying to find our way into business and writing and drawing, telling their own stories. It's funny that that somehow the Turtles managed to evolve and retain this audience when it just as easily could have not. There's so many things that have changed since that time period. But I think by the time we got to the first couple of years of the Turtles, with what Peter and I did with it as a story, at least in the comic book, was around the time that it was just sort of easing into the cartoon opportunity and toys and those kinds of things, which definitely propelled it to a whole other level. At the height of the Turtles comic books, I think we were selling probably 100,000 copies. It was phenomenal. But the first couple cartoon shows were reaching audiences of 1 million plus kids, and so I think that was the idea of the Turtles somehow floated to the top, and it retained this audience base, which is interesting when I fast forward to now, 36 years later. Most of the fans that we meet at shows, like yourself, were the original fans. The guys that were reading it as kids. Whether you came in through the comic book or the cartoon show, it seems like, and I've heard the story a few times where fan discovering it very young at, say, age 5 through the cartoon show, and around the time he or she was just growing out of it as a juvenile kind of concept, they discovered the black and white comic book.
I don't know what's happened there. We got some audio interference. Hello?
Oh, can you hear me still?
Oh, yeah. Now you sound good.
Okay. I feel like, probably you guys are experiencing the same thing, in this time when we're all doing what we should, which is staying home and being safe, that everybody, in our household and everybody in our neighborhood is all using, the Wi-Fi.
Same time, it's kind of chugging along.
So I think sometimes at night it gets a real bit of a drag on us.
All right, so I do have to get to the chat because there's a lot of activity in the chat. So I want to get to the super chats that aren't necessarily questions first. Stay Puff 1983, I know he's a big fan as well. He says, just want to say thanks for co-creating a huge part of my childhood. So big thanks, Stay Puff 1983, for that. And then we had John's Comics with Kids, says, no question, just a reminder, super chats go to charity. Thanks for sharing your time with us, Kevin. But I do want to get into the first question from the chat here. Brandon Stawinski, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Kevin, I'm loving the Batman TMNT crossover, but will there ever be a Daredevil TMNT crossover, and would you want one?
Oh, my goodness, yeah, that would be definitely, bucket list kind of stuff. It was funny. It was the whole concept of how the Batman was. I was a huge fan, as all of us are, of Jack Kirby. My particular favorite Kirby period was the DC Comics period, and one of my favorites in particular was Commandy, the Last Boy on Earth, because it was based on one of the first movies I ever saw in a movie theater back in the day, which was Planet of the Apes. And so, Commandy was sort of an elaboration of that concept, mutant animals ruling the earth and all that kind of thing. So I came up with this pitch for DC to pitch my old friend Dan Didio. And I said, I want to do a Turtles Commandy crossover, because, what more fantastic, opportunity and experience for the Turtles of literally going from the world that they exist in, where they're sort of living on the ground, in the shadows, and then to go into a world that's this post-apocalyptic world where the animals rule the world. So it might be harder for them to want to come back to the real world. And so Dan responded wonderfully, and he just said, "Well, that's a great idea, but nobody knows really who Commandy is. Why don't you do like a Turtles Batman crossover?" And we were like, "What? We didn't know that was on the table, bro." And fortunately for all of us, that was everybody was able to reach agreement, and then even more fortunately for all of us is that they brought in the incredible James Tinian and Freddie Williams to write and draw it, because those guys really knocked it out of the park in every way. James's script was so thoughtful and careful to sort of make, besides creating an interesting stories, really give all the variety of characters and handling a number of those characters and giving everybody a moment and making it still flow and work. And of course, huge fan of Freddie's artwork even before he took on that gig. So Freddie and I have been friends quite a long time now, since the beginning of that series. So that was great. So, as everybody knows, that's a serious Turtle fan, that there's bits and pieces of the Daredevil origin that are part of the Turtles origin, much like, we borrowed everything from a little bit of Cerebus, a little bit of New Mutants, a little bit of Daredevil, a little bit of everything, sort of all into the blender, and out came the Turtles. But for me, I was a huge Daredevil fan long before Frank Miller came on board. I like the more grounded characters, Captain America, Daredevil, Batman, those kind of characters, I guess. And I still remember when this issue 158, when they introduced this new penciler, and I was like, hey, this guy's pretty good. And he, Frank Miller blew us all away. 30 issues. So that would be a dream project. I don't think Marvel would ever happen, but I have ideas for it if they ever.
And obviously, we have the Power Rangers crossover right now too.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun.
Which I'm a
Power Rangers guy too. No, it's like, it was funny because we did, even before the Batman Turtle crossover, we did the Ghostbusters Turtle, and I was like, I just knew the guy with the little icon with Mr. Stay Puft. I was like, that was one of my favorite movies.
Nice.
So I thought that was a pretty great crossover.
All right, next question that popped up says, grew up with the OG Turtles. Thanks for the great childhood. Any chance we get another live action movie again?
It is something that I think we're all hopeful for. And to me, I was, because, I have no real say or approval anymore. But it's one of those, they did bring me in to give my opinion on the 2014-2016 movie. There were issues that I felt they should have done a bit differently. They were definitely going for a different look, and it was sort of, whatever they wanted to use for my input, they used. Whatever they didn't. I did tell them I thought it was kind of problematic to root for an underdog that's 7 feet tall and bulletproof. It has, the nose. But I did. I was really pleasantly. I really enjoyed the 2016 movie in the sense that we finally got to see a really great version of Bebop and Rocksteady on the big screen. There were moments in those that were great. There were ones that I didn't care for as much. But my pitch when asked of the next evolution of Turtles for entertainment and live action, I said, it was my opinion that you should do something like the Daredevil TV series. You could do a multi-episode series, perhaps a couple seasons. But if you could do it in that tone, not necessarily you want to see heads lopped off and flying across the screen and all that stuff. But I just think that if you take it back to the importance and the roots of the Turtles, which they always forget, in my opinion, in a lot of the movies, except for the first Turtle movie, which is the martial arts aspect and things. So I think you could do a pretty fantastic series with that kind of nice, gritty tone. So I'm hoping that's next. But I have heard that they might be developing talk to me about it.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome. I hope the live action turtle side of things definitely is not over. I would be first in line for any of that stuff. So
get some practical turtle suits again. That'd be great.
And then the last, I've got another question that just popped up. Well, here's a rapid fire question. I'm sure you got this 10 billion times over the last 36 years. But Drew Manchu, he's been killing it, moderating down below, helping us out in the StreamYard. But he asked, who is the best turtle and why is it Raphael?
I love it. No, that's always one of those most challenging questions, because it is always like, who's your favorite turtle? And the obvious answer is I love them all because Peter and I are like their dads, and so they're like our kids. When they press it, I say that I would probably go with Michelangelo was the first turtle drawn. So I said if I had to choose one, I might choose I'd choose Michelangelo just because I was forced. But I'll tell you, when I do stories, or when I would do a story featuring a individual turtle, I really gravitate to Raphael first because I just feel like he's the most unpredictable. I feel like you can push him further and farther and do more things with him as a character, especially if you team him up with Casey Jones.
Classic matchup.
Yeah, I was so thrilled when finally able to release the Body Count collected. I think it was 2018. It came out. It was based on a story that Simon Bisley and I did back in 1996, which was probably the most violent turtle story ever done to date. And I think that's why Nickelodeon was real resistant on releasing it. But I was glad it came back out in its original form and style. So, but yeah, that's Casey and Raphael at their best.
Nice. I did have one question about the action figures. Kind of goes on with what Drew just asked. Did you ever have a favorite action figure from the original action figure line?
Yeah, many, besides, the original, obviously the first time we saw all four turtles, having the four turtles, that was fantastic. But I always went for the goofier, the better, the crazier. And, one particular, if I had to single out one, I would choose the giant android body Krang.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that was just so weird. It was great.
Big Krang fan.
Yeah, but yeah, it was fun. It is amazing how many figures that they actually did back in the day at that time. But it was secondarily I would go to if I besides singling out the android body Krang was when they did a couple of theme ones, in particular the Star Trek turtles.
Oh yeah, I love those too.
I was a huge Star Trek fan when I was a kid. So actually in my studio over here somewhere I've got my phaser and my I guess Leonardo as Captain Kirk. But yeah, that was and Universal City Monsters.
Yeah. All right. So going back to the chat, Brandon Stowinski is asking, do you have any planned appearances after the COVID-19 stuff wraps up?
Man, this has been, it's been, I don't want to say this carefully because I know how hard it's been on our fans. And I know, like all of you, I can't go to the comic store these days. We can't enjoy all the things we love about our passion, our comic book universe, and it's one of my favorite personal things is doing the touring and going out and visit with the fans because it's sort of like an artist, writer, artist. It's not a team sport for the most part. It's like I'm sitting at my desk over here, drawing by myself most of the time. So when you actually get out and get to see the fans and sort of like talk about what you've been doing in the series and what they liked about it, what they did, just hear some of those stories from the old days where they would come up and say, I wore the Turtles Halloween costume for 3 years in a row when I was a kid, and that's fantastic. So we just ultimately just to keep our family safe, our loved ones safe, all of you out there who we love and appreciate your support, keep all of you safe. We cancel shows through June, and we'll look at where everything's at for August. So we had a bunch of shows booked. We usually do about 15 to 18 shows a year. And so we're hopeful that, if we can get a good solid handle on this nasty thing that's disrupted all of our lives and get our country and our world back together, we'll get out again this fall. So stay tuned to, if you go to KevinEastmanStudios.com, that's our main website where you can find out what we're doing, where we're going, and we've been putting up tons of free content, just free download digital books, and so there's all kinds of stuff you can see and hang out and do. It doesn't cost you anything. Just that's where to stay in tune for when we get things back on track together. That's where we'll let you know first.
Very cool.
Awesome. So I want to thank Fan Dads as well in the chat for the $5 super chat. Real Comic Book Talk. That's a great channel right there. They actually had 2 super chats. And their next question, what current TMNT comic story do you want to see done in a live action movie? Do you have one that you've done from like maybe the recent comics? I think City at War would make a good one personally.
Good call. That was exactly what I was going to say, because I felt like it was a, anything from the IDW universe, in my opinion, and even in discussions, because Nickelodeon and, we chat and talk about different bits of this and that. And I always felt that if, after they did the Turtle Batman animated crossover, and I'm drifting to that for just a second and go back to the live action, but when they did the Batman versus Turtles animated thing, I said, it was great because you really dipped your toe in with doing something a bit more edgy, a bit more for the older fan base. I said, if you started going back to the IDW universe and explored more movies animated in that type, or I'd love to see any of those done in live action. And Tom and I have talked about it. Tom Walsh and I, and City at War. We both agreed that would be a fantastic thing, because you could set up what had been developed in the early series. By the time you get to City at War, it just really launches into a nice point where Shredder's been doing what Shredder's doing and stuff. So there's a lot of intensity in that. So I would City at War, hands down. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I got to rapid fire these last couple questions here. So we got the Great Legend show in the chat. Basically, just real quick, Bebop or Rocksteady?
Who do I like better?
Yeah.
What it is? Oh man, that's tough, because it was, and actually it's funny. I was just mentioning some of the free stuff you can see on KevinEastmanStudios.com. Is like, I was going through some archival stuff, and I save everything to the point of like it's bordering on hoarding. Seriously, I save every turtle thing, and I found original scripts and original drawings and designs for the first 5 episodes of Turtles that were done back in, it came out. First 5 episodes came out in that Christmas holiday break in 1987, leading up to New Year's 1988. But I found these original Bebop and Rocksteady drawings that were developed for the toys and for the cartoon show, and I'm like, oh, these are awesome, because those characters actually originated from the 1986 the role-playing game that we did with Palladium Books. But man, I guess if I love them both, and like I said, I love them both in the 2016 movie. I thought they did a great job, and it was so funny because Seamus, who's the actor that played Rocksteady, is just happened to be our son Shane's one of his favorite wrestlers. We got to meet. We went to a wrestling event just to meet Seamus before he became, Rocksteady. But I would probably go with Rocksteady only because he's just such a bruiser. But it's one of those duos like Casey and Raphael. Both of them together is, individually each they're cool. Together they're awesome. So.
2 great tastes that taste great together.
I always said Rocksteady is easier to beat in that video game. But I want to get back to the chat once again. Big shout out to Ninja House. He's put in 2 super chats. He says, please say hi to Peruvian fans and at Ninja House. And then we got who that? Yeah, go ahead, man. Sorry.
Hi to all the fans in the Peruvian. Say hi to all the Peruvian fans in Ninja House. What up? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then the last one I had, of course, Great Legend, $5 more. Thank you, Legend. And we got Who Dat Comics Movies. This guy is a big Turtle fan. He just wants to thank you for adding Jenica to the Turtle team. That way his daughter has a role model to add, just like he had when he was a kid. So I was actually going to ask about this myself. What went into creating Jenica and making the decision to make her a turtle and add her to the team?
What was fantastic, and in working with Tom is always a pleasure for the ideas of what we can bring back again from the Turtle universes and what we can sort of bring in directly as they were, or some of the characters that we've created have been reimagined in a couple of different ways, a bunch of different ways. But we, in one of our sort of mind melts, we do these weekly mind melts and talking about different bits of Turtle history, and I always said that I love the idea of a female turtle, to have another strong female role models, another strong female character in the Turtles universe. And there were, April, there's a number of them in there, but I felt like when that originally transpired in that live action series, which was actually based on we developed a fourth live action turtle movie with New Line Cinema that was never released. And that had the big hook in that was that we had a fifth turtle and a male turtle named Kirby. And then when that developed into the Fox Saban, Fox Kids series, it was changed into a girl turtle named Venus. And I felt like just the way that it was brought in, it was not something that it came off a little more gimmicky than what we planned and what we hoped. It wasn't intended to be gimmicky or goofy, but it ended up being introduced. And I thought the fans felt that was kind of forced down their throat, and they were like, no, too much. And the turtle costumes were different and everything. So Tom and I said, well, let's find a way to bring a female turtle into the mix. So when Tom created this character and brought her into the Turtle universe in issue 51 called Jenica, she was a foot assassin sent to kill Splinter and just havoc. We both fell in love with her as a character as of the next couple issues. So instead of sort of killing her off, we had Splinter take her under his wing, turn her to the more honorable side when he took over control of the foot and that kind of thing. So as she became more popular as a character, we really looking now like 2 years down the line, and we said, there's a great opportunity where fans already love this character, Jenica. Let's see if we can do something like the She-Hulk origin or that kind of thing to create a scenario where she's given the blood transfusion, and we can have her become a turtle and join the team because she already is part of the team. Fans already love her, and then hopefully, fingers and toes crossed that they'll buy into it, because we throughout the 100 issues and even what is going on in the ongoing series now, it really comes down to one thing in any of these story discussions: it's story first. We don't want to have anything come off as like, hey, let's kill off a character because we think we'll sell more books, or let's do this because we think it'll sell more books. It's always like, it has to evolve naturally or organically. So we were beyond thrilled when fans accepted Jenica to the family.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and we've ran out of time. So thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Eastman. This has been a huge bucket list for me. This is absolutely amazing. Where can people find you on the internet if you'd like to lead them to a specific place?
Sure. You actually, KevinEastmanStudios.com is our fan site, and we've been doing as many things like this. We're reaching out, and we're all in the same situation together. We're all at home, but let's keep in touch and reach out. So if you go to KevinEastmanStudios.com, you'll find we're doing more Facebook Live events. We're doing some other Steam events. I've been doing I'm going to do a couple of podcasts with my friend Paul Jenkins, who's a great Marvel writer for Origins and stuff like that. So we're going to do some great stuff there. So just go to KevinEastmanStudios.com and you'll find out what I'm doing and where, and come hang out with us. And guys, it's a great way to spend a Saturday night with you all here.
Thank you.
So, cheers. This was awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Be safe. Wash your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Kevin. All right. So it looks like we have our next guest lined up. So I'm going to bring on John's Comics with Kids. He's been waiting backstage, so I'm going to turn it over to him. So, John, take it away, buddy.
Man, you guys slayed that. Get out of here, man.
Bye.
That was awesome. Kevin freaking Eastman, you guys in the chat. I hope you really enjoyed that. A reminder, all of those super chats are going to charity. Red Cross, a Hero Initiative. We are doing this for so many great causes. This is no cost to all of you, and thank you to all these creators and people spending their time with us. But the number one people, the main group we're trying to support here are those local comic shops. And I'm super excited to bring to you my local comic shop. This is Kenny from Nuclear Comics. There we go. Let me bring him in. Whoops, sorry. Kenny, how you doing, man? Oh, I can't quite hear you. Are you there?
There I am.
Oh, there you are. Nice.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you, brother.
Okay, cool. So it's gonna be weird looking. I don't know if I'm supposed to look here or there, but if I look at myself, I'm off looking at the wrong direction. But anyway, I'm gonna look at this dot. I'll do my best to look at this dot so it looks like I'm looking at the camera. Anyway, like John said, I'm Kenny Jacobs. I'm standing at my door, so you kind of get an idea of. Hello, everybody. By the way, hello. I'm obviously a tough act to follow after Kevin Eastman. Hopefully, there's some people around looking at whatever we're doing. But this is my store. Actually, you're only looking at me right now, so I'm going to flip around so you can actually see because I'm not really that important anyway.
As you guys can see too, Kenny is a super comic smolder like our Reggie collects. He's always flexing the muscles. And my girls love going into his shop. He's got the tank tops, the sandals, very California shop.
So right now I'm gonna just introduce you to the store. My name's Kenny, like you said. I've had the store since 1994. I opened it when I was 24. Here is our very temporary display of toilet paper, which includes a toy wall. It's pretty decimated. The store's a little bit mess right now. I apologize, but it's just been crazy. This is like donations. People have been dropping stuff off for us to sell. Toilet paper and snacks and drinks because now we're a convenience store, so that we're essential. So here's a display. Our displays change up pretty regularly. This is normally our all ages shelf, but this will be the new comic shelf.
I see that mixed in with the toilet paper. I see some classic 90s goodness in there.
That stuff is the branded toilet paper, which we're selling for $1 each. And then just a random pop wall. We're not a big toy store, but we carry some random stuff. Here's our TKO display, but this display is pretty changed. This is normally the new comic shelf, which John knows, but because of no new comics for a little while, we turned it into our all ages shelf. It looks beautiful, but it can't stay this way forever. And then this is our front display. This changes a lot right now.
And I will say one of the things I've always loved about coming in your shop is all the great trade paperbacks. You've got such an amazing selection. And if people hit you up on Instagram, and I keep dropping the link there, if you want to get some quarantine reading, he's got used trades for 50% off that he posts on his Instagram. He's got, of course, all the new trades, and he ships.
Yeah, and basically our standard ship deal for anybody is 20% off the cover price, and I ship for free. That's for anybody all the time. You could also do a drinking game with me live because I do a lot of ums, and you could drink every time I say an and then you guys might be hammered after an hour. But okay, so let's get to walking around the store. So that's the all ages shelf, pretty awesome stuff. Blah blah blah. Here is the Marvel shelf, and then we're gonna. Hopefully this is coming in clear for you guys and whatever. But then here's the back side of our graphic novel display, which again we switch out. So Marvel comics.
And I also love New Comic Book Day. It's something we've been missing for sure. My girls and I coming in New Comic Book Day because you have an incredible new comic selection. So it's a great place to have a pull list. I've always loved that.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you. And then here's the DC shelf. Continue walking around the store. And right now, all the shelf comics we're doing, everything's 50% off. I know it's pretty difficult to ship, but if you have a wish list, you can send me whatever you want. I'll be happy to, 50% off any of these current issues. This is the Image shelf.
That's right. So 50% off, people. If you're trying to catch up on current reads and you're missing out on certain stories, hit him up on Instagram, Nuclear Comics, and hit him with your wish list, and he can give you 50% off of the books that are on that shelf.
This shelf is kind of rough because it's kind of packed and you can't really see anything except spines of comics, which is pretty dumb, but it's really the space issue. But this is like Dynamite, Aftershock, Boom, not the Kids Boom, Titan, Valiant, and a lot of miscellaneous. And then down there on that bottom shelf, that's Dark Horse and IDW miscellaneous. And then there's
that trade
the
wall
graphic novel shelf with the Marvel and DC stuff.
Can you pull, just for my sake of love, can you pull a Teen Titans and let's see if one of them's got a signature in it?
Let's see.
I love this. So Marv Wolfman comes to this shop regularly, and he'll sign the new Teen Titans trades. And if you're lucky enough,
I'm gonna go on a limb. I don't think book 1 has a signature, but I think book 2 might. So let me pull it out and check.
Let's take a look.
Oh, not that one. Nope, not that one.
Oh man, because I have purchased several over the years that have signatures from Marv Wolfman in them, and it's freaking awesome. So you just never know. Sometimes when you come in the shop, you're looking for some new Teen Titans.
We're lying.
You might.
Oh, let's just check. Let's check the.
Maybe they're all gone. Maybe they got all snagged. You know.
Oh, there's
one. Boom! Marv Wolfman signature on a trade for which is that volume 8 or 9?
That is a 6. And I never would. I don't upcharge, so a Marv Wolfman signature in the trade, $20. And right now, all this stuff is 25% off. This is a pretty popular feature in the store. It's a Warner Brothers store exclusive. Pretty hard to find. It moves and talks. It's pretty awesome, but I'm not going to play it because you guys probably want to see more stuff. Anyway, there's more trades, and this is our. Because we're a very graphic novel and trade paperback heavy shop because I do a lot of conventions, 5 or 6 a year. I've been doing San Diego since 2001. This would have been our 20th year doing San Diego Comic-Con. I'm not right now, quite honestly, because I dreaded spending my 50th birthday inside Comic-Con, which I would have been doing this year, and I really didn't want to do that. I know that doesn't matter to any of you, but I hate spending my birthday at Comic-Con.
Well, I know that's another thing that's hitting LCS's hard is not being able to go to cons and have those con events where you're selling your books. So this is another opportunity for people who want those trades. Like there's some great, I see Descender, I see Paper Girls. You can get some of those trades that you want to read and get them shipped to you. If you go to Nuclear Comics on Instagram, you can give them their information and you can get some of those great books.
Yeah, normally these shelves are packed. This space is kind of crazy. We never have this much space on our shelves, but because we haven't closed a single day throughout this crazy quarantine stuff, and we've been having a sale for the last 6 weeks, we have holes. So this shelf is if you could see it pretty quickly, it's pretty much image alphabetically and then Vertigo. Some of my favorite stuff over there, and then more back stock of hardcovers and trades. And then this shelf is trades separated by writer, and then
I know that my friend Alec from Whitewell Comics will be pumped on this wall where trades are organized by the talent who created them. So you've got your Brubaker section. I see the Kirkman section right there. It's really cool. So if you get into a writer, you might not know other works by that person. You can find pieces that they have done.
Yeah, this is a section that I gravitate towards a lot when doing recommendations for customers. Jonathan Hickman, pretty much genius. Little Will Eisner down there, Magnola, Morrison, kind of the heavy hitters. The only thing this shelf is missing right now, which I could probably fit it now, is a Jeff Lemire section. I have just not had time to make one.
Nice.
Preacher, my all-time favorite comic book series, just in case any of you care.
Of course.
Star Wars, because it fits nowhere else. But anyway, yeah, a lot of oversized stuff up top. And then what so many of your customers and your friends like, this is our back issues. These are basically custom made press board short box holders, and then they go alphabetical, flip through boxes and whatnot. But so
yeah, I love the pictures of the comics on the front because then it helps you guide, like, oh wait, where am I? I'm in the B's, I'm in the C's, I'm in the D's.
Except the funniest part is, so this is funny because this is obviously not the comic, but people ask and say, do you have this? Or
For
why did you cut a
25
hole in
bucks?
your comic book? that cover I had was probably like 15 years ago, and no, I didn't cut holes in the comics. Yeah, here's one, $300. No,
but with a
I
hole
don't
right in
think
the
so.
center.
Yeah, I cut holes in them. So basically, our back issues wrap around, and then this is basically everything that's not Marvel, DC, Image, graphic novel section, so independent and alternative.
And now you're getting closer to one of the sections of the store that my girls and I love, which is the discount stuff that you've got. Your collect.
Okay.
We'll jump forward. I want to jump you. I don't want to jump you.
No, it's fine. I'm fine being guided. So this is our half off graphic novel section. It's basically a shelf, which we constantly replenish from customer trade-ins, or stuff that's been sitting on the shelf for too long. I don't know how good you could see it, John. I mean, I don't know. The camera focus is just so.
I will legit tell you guys, it's the second place after the new shelf that I go to when I hit this shop. He's got an incredible collection of used trades that are like in pristine condition, and you get them for 50% off. So you can find all kinds of great comics that you want for reading's sake and get them in trade form. Like you saw, there was some Omnis in there. Some simple floppies. There's even some hardcovers. Look, there's almost a whole run I think you had of Walking Dead recently.
Yeah, there's a big chunk of Walking Dead on the half off shelf right now.
So you can get the trades that you guys want to read to catch up on some of these fun runs right here for 50% off when you go through. Again, this shop, this is my LCS called Nuclear Comics. And Instagram is the best way to find Kenny, although he has an eBay store as well, and I'll drop the link for that in just a second. Yeah, then there's your
more half off stuff because I can't even fit everything on the shelf. And then this is something that we do as well that I see people do at shows, but I don't know how long we've been doing it, but pretty long time. So we take our back issues and we collect them in an entire set for you, but unlike the places at conventions that seem to want to overcharge, we actually sell them for a deal. Look at this. This book's pretty hard to find, maybe, if you care, but it's awesome because it's Richard Corbin. $10, 4-issue miniseries called Banner. It's pretty crazy. But anyway, this is just random dollar books. This is more back issues, basically. And then back issue. So the back issue, like the graphic novel section that was on the other side over there where it's separated by creator, I have back issues separated by creator too.
And I just dropped the link to your eBay store as well. And he has books on his eBay store that you can buy as well. But again, you hit him up with your list if there's a back issue you're looking for or a trade you're looking for. And he regularly posts videos of his 50% off trades and his dollar books and things like that. So you can get a sense. We're here to try to really help these LCSs keep going through this hard time. A friend of ours, Lord of the Longbox, TiVo, is in the chat saying, "Hey, there's Kenny."
Hi, Tim.
So yeah, Tim and I.
Yeah, so I'm obviously
part of the world, so we have the same love for the same shops.
So there's obviously a little bit more display on the top of our bins that just have large format. I don't know I mean, some of it's just basically art books. Some of it's, I guess you'd call reference material. But they just display really nicely on the top like that. It just looks good. It's good eye-catching stuff. We sell a little.
Sorry, I dropped that link wrong. I'll try that again. Sorry, guys.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because we're working on a delay right now. Hey, I'm Chad, by the way. Thanks for having us in here, but I gotta. I hate to say this, but I gotta kind of bump everybody because
we got an awesome tour of the shop, and I really do appreciate the time to show these LCSs. So the shop is Nuclear Comics, and Kenny, thanks so much, brother, for giving us a quick tour, man.
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna get your links out there real quick.
Hopefully check us out on Instagram.
Thanks, Kenny. And I'm going to bring in our next two guests with their very special host who has been fanboying up all week and reading, and that's none other than Whitewell Comics, Alec. And are you ready for the guy?
As ready as I'm going to be. There he is.
Hey.
What's up, gentlemen? Pleasure to see you. So as we just real quickly before we get into the whole.
Hey, Alec, we're getting some feedback on you. Can you jump in and jump out and come right back? I'll hang out with the.
How about that? Is that better?
Oh, perfect, guys. Okay. Thank you. This is Alec, and these guys don't need any introduction.
Yeah, I'll certainly introduce you guys as well, just to make sure. This is Chuck Palahniuk and David Mack, two of my all-time favorite creators. And when we were setting this thing up, Chad kept asking me, well, who do you want to interview? Who do you want to interview? And when he told me your two names, I said, if I get to talk to those guys, I don't care who else I talk to this weekend, because I'm a true, massive, mega fan. I won't spend our whole time nerding out over how much fun this is, but I just want to say I appreciate all the work you guys do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So I spent most of this week kind of fine-tooth rereading Fight Club 2 and Fight Club 3 for this conversation. But I wanted to let you guys kind of talk about it first for a bit before I dig into my deep conspiracy questions.
Chuck, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Are you in Lexington?
No, I'm closer to Ohio. I'm right on the Ohio River at the moment. But okay. Yeah, we got to see each other on New Year's Day before everything went crazy in the world.
Yeah. How are you guys doing with this pandemic situation?
Well, my tour got scrubbed, but if it's possible, I'd like to mention at some point the stores that have kind of worked out a special way of supporting them.
Yeah, absolutely. Stores. That is definitely the priority for what we're here for. So, I mean, the floor is yours, whatever you'd like to discuss.
You know, if I don't mention anybody else, I like comics in Vancouver. I'm working really close with Chris to try to make as many people happy as possible. But later on, I'll run through the stores that I'm working with through the Midwest and Texas, and as far as Louisville. So please, later on.
Yeah, amazing. That was kind of the impetus for this whole weekend, was to help out local shops and independent creators and stuff like that who are, obviously having a hard time right now with their doors being closed. So definitely appreciate you doing that. So my first question is in regards to when you decided to do Fight Club 2 and then Fight Club 3, what made you decide to do it in comic form? And were you concerned of that being a challenge that since it's so different as far as storytelling?
Number one, the movie built such a fantastic following, and the book did also. And so any kind of a sequel written in either one of those two forms would be compared to the previous one in that form. And so whether it was prose or whether it was another film, it was kind of doomed by comparison. The first one had built the first versions had built such a legacy that it really needed to be, a sequel needed to be told in a different medium altogether to have its own authority. And so that was one big reason for comics. Another big reason was every medium has its own strength, and comics has a really, really easy consumability like film. So easy to get through that story. But it has a kind of lack of realism, a kind of wiggle room compared to film, where everything has to be made so literal. And especially in the case of Fight Club 2, there are so many really potentially upsetting aspects of the story that if you built an army of dying children, for instance, that was just not going to work in film. but it would work in comics. So that's why comics.
Yeah, one of the things I really appreciate about Fight Club 2 and Fight Club 3 is the fact that it doesn't feel like you were trying to write another book and just do it in comic form. You really kind of told it in a different way that fit the medium of comics, I think, really well.
And that's only because I had really great teachers like Cameron and David and Scott, who really showed me the ropes of how to tell stories in a different medium. So thank you.
Oh,
what is the casting?
Oh, this is Inky.
Inky.
Appropriate. Yeah. My next question is actually for you, David. From Chuck writing something like Fight Club, which is on the surface so hyper masculine, and a lot of stuff you do is much more on the feminine side. How did you guys kind of come together to find this collaboration?
Like how did we come together?
How did you find those two? How did you find those two things to like meet in the middle? Or
I don't know that I don't know that I thought in gender terms so much about it, just more in terms of the character. So luckily on Fight Club 2, I'd seen the film and I had read the book. Mm-hmm. And Chuck and I had like a correspondence for a while before too. But luckily for Fight Club 2, I was able to read the script in advance. And it was just a joy, reading that script. And it was really, a full script, just everything was there. Yeah, so when I was reading it, it really gave me the opportunity to try to think of, if I'm making a cover for each issue, what's kind of an image for each chapter that I can kind of try to crystallize from that chapter into something visual, for the cover. And, that demonstrates the theme of that, but also is something that like I can put into some kind of physical form that catches your eye and grabs your attention, but also hopefully says something insightful, about the story as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like your work is always so striking when you see it on the stands. And I was also kind of curious about, your work has changed so much over the last 25 years. And has that been an intentional metamorphosis, or is that something that you've kind of just let happen more organically?
It's probably both. And I think a part of it is just every time I'm doing a project, I'm trying to think in terms of that particular project. So I'm not so much thinking that I'm trying to make each project like I'm not trying to manufacture a certain style and then stamp that on every project. I kind of feel like I'm kind of in a partnership or a collaboration with each of the characters or the projects I'm working with. So I feel like that gives me a certain liberty, to be flexible and just kind of to be open to what it brings out in me for it. So I kind of look at it that way. But, I can see how you could step back and like over time look at a body of work and see, the range and all those different things. And hopefully they have their own range because each of the projects and the characters were different. But, I'm sure there's kind of an evolution, to that as well. With myself, I try to make a conscious effort to, I like to have the fantasy that I'm improving, with each project or that I get better each time.
Yeah, I think so.
So I hope that's true. I hope I'm learning from each one and applying, you're kind of building a toolbox as you go. And so every time you do a new project, you kind of have more tools in your toolbox, a little bit more understanding. So it's part that, but it's also part that, I'm not trying to make them, look the same. I like the idea that, the style is going to kind of reveal itself, in the process, of working with whatever the project is.
All right. So we do have some questions from the chat. Hopefully we can take those pretty quickly if you guys have a couple minutes. The first one is from Joshua Pallas. Said, Mr. Palahniuk, such a huge fan. Your writing has deeply inspired my own and countless others. What writers inspired you when you first started writing?
I'm going to recommend short story people. So Dennis Johnson, his book Jesus' Son. So Dennis Johnson, 1N, Jesus' Son. Tom Jones, Thom, Tom Jones. His big book was Pugilist at Rest. Amy Hempel, she's got lots of books. So Amy Hempel. Namie Moon, Korean-American writer, fantastically funny, heartbreaking stories. Namie, Nami, Moon, Mun. So that's 4. 2 men, 2 women.
Excellent. Next one is from the Night Nerd, who asks, Chuck, there's a part at the end of Fight Club 3 where a lot of artists are being held captive. Was there a point in Fight Club 2 or 3 when publishers thought something was too crazy you had to tone it back?
No, you don't. God bless Richardson, but I don't think he really knew what we were going to do in Fight Club 3 until it was done, because I'm not sure if he would have greenlighted something so much of which took place in a sex club.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do this whole graphic novel, but a third of it's going to take place in the raunchiest sex club you can imagine during a pandemic. And so I think that we got away with it just because people didn't know what we had. So
that's amazing. Next one comes from the Night Nerd. David, how different is the challenge of telling a story on just a cover versus sequential pages?
I look at it as a totally different challenge. I really look at the cover in the terms of, the job is it's kind of a twofold job. One is to make the reader pick up the book, or even more than that, if they just notice it online or if they see it on the shelf, even from 20 feet away, I want it to make them walk over to it. And I want it to catch their eye, and I want it to distinguish itself from all the other books next to it. And I want them to pick that up. The second part of that is I think of the cover as kind of like the doorway to the story, and in a way, kind of like what opening titles are to like a film or TV show, where you kind of want to put the reader in the headspace, kind of clue them in of what kind of headspace they might want to be in for when they read the book. So I look at it that way too. Like, I've worked on some opening titles, like I did the opening titles for Jessica Jones and Netflix. Yeah. And you kind of want that to kind of ease people into the psychology of kind of the atmosphere of the world that they're going to be experiencing. So I try to do that in it, but I also want it to grab your attention. So when I'm doing a cover, I'm not just thinking about what's inside the rectangle of the cover. I'm thinking about how it looks on the stand next to like 100 other books around it. So I'll do what I call like a little buffer zone, where I want like the edges of the book to kind of, I might leave like some white space or a solid cover, a color or something else. And I'll try to use like some bold graphic shapes so that even from a distance, it'll catch your eye. And even if the other covers around it have a lot of other things going on, I want it to kind of have a clarity to the shape of it from a distance. So you walk over and pick it up.
Yeah.
So, those are very different challenges to when you're composing the inside of a story and working on the panels and I'm happy to talk about that too. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we do have a limited amount of time with you gentlemen tonight. And I know, Chuck, you said you wanted to shout out some shops before we have to cut it too soon. So we'd like to make sure we get that in.
Okay, let me go. King's English in Salt Lake City, Changing Hands in Phoenix, Book People in Austin, Texas, Left Bank Books in St. Louis, Carmichael's in Louisville, Fountain Bookstore in Oxford, and Rainy Day in Kansas City, Prairie Lights in Iowa City, and Anderson Book Company in Naperville outside of Chicago. Those were all stores I was going to be at on tour with this, but I can't, so I am supporting them with whatever they want done. If you want something special, go to one of those. and they will come to me. Thank you.
Amazing. And so our intention is that once this weekend is done, we're going to cut all these into segments and post them. So we'll make sure we put all those links in the description of that video for you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't really state that enough. And I have a whole list of questions that we didn't have time to get to, which I expected. If you gentlemen are ever bored and want to come back on and have a longer chat, it'd be my pleasure.
Yeah, it was a delight. Thanks for having us on here.
And keep up the amazing work, and I will continue to be an amazing fan.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
All right, folks, we just wrapped up that Fight Club 3 panel. Absolutely amazing stuff. Right now, we're going to get into our first creators panel of the night. We got a full hour with these guys. It's a murderer's row of independent creators, and leading the charge, talking about how to publish your first book, is our friend Rylan Grant. Rylan, welcome back to the stream. Oh, he's come prepared for songs. It's been a long time. I'm going to hang out, and because I was asked to man some screen share, but I'll turn my mic and my camera off and get out of your way. I'm going to bring everybody on for you.
Excellent. David Boer, Frank Gogol, Sean Lewis. Where's David Pepos? There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 37th consecutive all-male panel at the Mainframe Comic. I wrote a little song to commemorate.
We got some ladies tomorrow, Rylan. Sundays for the ladies.
I wrote a song here to commemorate the Sausage Festive occasion, if you guys will bear with me. You ready? Men have feelings too. May I share mine with you? The inner child cries from deep within. Nurture me, brothers, we all can win. 'Cause men have feelings too. May I share mine with you? Ooh, hello, brothers. Let's all join hands and sing Kumbaya.
That was great. I feel like the panel just peaked early.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I decided to fuck with everybody. I got a little antsy sitting there waiting on Chuck Palahniuk. Can you believe they moved us back 7 minutes for that guy? What in the hell? He's great. He's one of my heroes. It's kind of cool being, Kevin Eastman was on right after me last time, and Chuck Palahniuk right before me. So that's kind of amazing. How you guys doing?
Pepos and I got into a fight in the waiting room, so that's where we're starting.
I mean, a fight implies that it was fair on both sides.
So literally,
you're the only one.
Literally, everyone is coming in hot right now. I love it. Okay, so I should say hi to all the people in TV streaming land in the Matrix now. Let me set this up a little bit. My name is Rylan Grant. You shouldn't listen to me, but if you decide that you want to listen to me, maybe it's because I have for, 12 plus years been a screenwriter in Hollywood. I've written for J.J. Abrams and Ridley Scott and John Woo and Luc Besson and a bunch of other people. A few years back, I swerved into the comic book lane. I wrote a book called Aberrant, which is a sort of love letter to paranoid action thrillers that won a Ringo Award, was nominated for a couple of others. And most recently, I did a kind of like kick you in the face superhero noir called Banjax that was on a bunch of 10 best lists this year. So this is, as Drew set up, this is the Bringing Your First Book to Life panel. This comes from, sort of my experience of, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was like a lot of you, where I was sitting in panels at Comic Cons, and I was sitting, behind my computer listening to streams and trying to figure out how to do this. And it took me a long while to kind of gather the right information. And once I had it, I used it to get my books published, and I felt guilty kind of hoarding it for myself. And so I decided that the right thing to do is to pay it forward and to make that information available to everybody. So what I like to do with these, whether they're on streams or at cons, is I like to get a bunch of people who are kind of smarter than me and better at me than this, and corner them and ask them all of the questions that were in my heart and in your heart. So what I did was I went out and I got, 4 of my, what's that?
So you got us. You settled for us.
I settled for you guys. 4 of my favorite creators. These guys all did books that I was just crazy about the last couple of years, and so they will impart knowledge to you. Why don't we go around and let's start? I don't know if you guys are probably looking at the same screen I am, but we'll go clockwise. So Brewer, Gogol, Sean, Pepos, and then back to me. Don't get into the story yet. Just introduce yourself. This is my book. These are my qualifications, and then let's kick it on back to me, and I'll set the next thing up. So go ahead, Dave.
All right. My name is David Boer, and I guess it's hard to follow up Ryland, but I wrote a book and co-created a book called Canto for IDW. I happen to have a copy right here. It came out in 2019, and the trade just came out. It turns out on the very last new comic book day that we had on March 25th. So we slipped. It was like Indiana Jones. We slipped it under the door as it was closing. We've got a lot more planned for it, but yeah, I did that. I've been writing for quite a long time, screenwriting and TV writing. I'm trying to chase Ryland down with his credits, but did a couple of comics for Vault Comics in 2018, I think 2017, and that's where I am now, in my house, like everybody.
And if you haven't read Canto, it's incredible. It's one of the better books I've read in the last 5 or 10 years. So highly recommended. Frank, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes, cool. All good.
I'm Frank Gogol. I wrote a few things. Grief was my first book, came out a couple years ago. The book you guys are all going to probably know me from, Dead End Kids, came out last year. And then I've got a new book coming out sometime this year, hopefully, depending on how things go, No Heroine. And I am the probably least qualified person to be here. I wrote my first comic book script 4 years ago this month, and I have no other credits whatsoever to my name. So that's it.
Nice. All right. And again, I'm not going to sit here and recommend every single one of these books. I only brought on great books. Frank's book is lights out and killer. And that's huge coming from me because, Frank and I are like mortal. Is it Nemesis? Is that the plural? We are nemesis or nemesis. What's that?
Blood feud.
Blood feud, yeah. So Frank and I are in the middle of a blood feud, kind of like a 90s era rap feud. And so if I say his book is good, I am very grudgingly saying it, but it's incredible. So please get Dead End Kids. Sean, go ahead.
Sure. So I am Sean Lewis. I don't have a book on me. I've done 4 books.
You have some nice paintings back there.
yeah. Here's
Did
the
you
art
do those?
of my books. These are the art from all of my comics. You should buy them.
Incredible.
They're fucking great.
Hayden is throwing 100 miles an hour now.
So new. This is from Bliss. It comes out this summer. Yeah, so I've done Saints, The Few, Coyotes, and Thumbs, all at Image Comics, and was set to publish a new book called Bliss at Image Comics. That'll come out when books start to come out again. And then I've done a couple of books over at Aftershock, and I'm doing a new book over at Vault as well. So yeah, that's me.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I got.
All right, Pepos, can you beat that?
Yeah, I'm David Pepos. I'm the writer of Spencer and Locke. Right here, 5-time Ringo Award nominated series, as well as its hit sequel, Spencer and Locke 2. And my recent book just came out, the trade came out in February, Going to the Chapel, which got a nice little endorsement from one Patton Oswalt, if you can see that. But yeah, I've been writing for Action Lab Comics for a few years now. I have a few more books in various stages and pipelines for a few other publishers that we haven't announced yet. But yeah, I got my start as a crime reporter, so I kind of came at this not from a film angle, but from a very different angle. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Nice. Okay. So that is everybody. These are your players tonight. Let's jump right in, guys. I don't know if we're gonna be cut 5 minutes short or what, but we'll see. We'll just go until Drew boots us out of this place. So let's go back to the beginning. I want to the sort of origin story. We're gonna focus in on the idea. Any comic book endeavor is going to be years of your life and perhaps tens of thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money, right? You do not commit to just any idea, right? It has to be the right idea. And so I want to know in general what you think makes the right idea. What makes an idea worth like years of your life and tens of thousands of dollars? And then more specifically, what made Kanto the right idea? What made Spencer and Locke the right idea? And so on and so on. And then sort of start, how you start to kind of nurture that idea just a little bit, short and sweet. Let's not get into the whole like how we're prepping for publishers and all that stuff just yet. I will veer into that lane in just a little bit, but focusing on the idea here. What is the right idea, and why was your idea the right idea, David?
Which me?
Yeah, David Moore. Sorry, yeah, so many David. Yeah,
that's fine. Well,
evil David.
Evil David. I like that.
Nice.
So, and I write all ages comics. That's great. I love it.
Yes.
So the way Kanto came about was my co-creator and the artist on it, Drew Zucker, who's amazing. Hey, Drew, if you're listening. I wanted to work with him, and he sent me what you're seeing now on the screen share is actually the initial pitch that we eventually put together. But even before that came about, we wanted to work together on something else. And it didn't work out. And then he sent me a concept drawing for what would become Kanto. It was this little tin man. And I have to tell you, when I got it in my inbox, it took me about half a second to email him back and say, I don't know who this character is. I don't know what his backstory is or what his name is or anything, what story we're going to tell, but we are going to tell it because it was just such a compelling character design for me. And he had an idea, and we took it and we sort of worked it, revamped it, and created the story that eventually became Kanto. But the genesis of the story was the character design that I thought was so both attractive from a reader's perspective as well as very commercially appealing. I thought a lot of people would find a lot of reasons to really like him. And so that's where the story initially began. It was with a concept drawing that we built around.
That's so interesting. So, I mean, you didn't even know what the idea was. You didn't know what the story was yet. It was just, you were so taken by this drawing and this character just brought everything to life in your mind. That's
yeah. So, as writers, we just work so much in the dark and alone, writing stories. And my experience with Kanto has been that with that collaboration, right at the very first step, it's just, it made such a rich story that we both brought our experience and personalities to, versus me creating something and saying, okay, now you design it. If I would have told him, create this tin man who's looking for a heart, it would have looked different than the one that he brought. So I loved that, going about this particular story in that way. Of course, you can go, approach stories in lots of different ways, but this is how that actually what's appearing right now on the screen is the inks to the first image that he sent me.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I'm sure writing is often this very, I lock myself in my cave. I'm in it right now. And just sort of, toil away. And then, an artist never doesn't see anything for months. And, it's a very lonely pursuit. But that's interesting. I mean, the collaboration begins right off the bat. I know Sean has had a lot of similar experiences. I would say maybe Boogie Bentley from Comic Cast asks, is this the 2020 Comic Cast Guest of the Year panel? I'm repping the cast on here. I gotta represent. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Frank, what do you think about that idea question?
Whew, I'm definitely not gonna. I'm gonna be the atypical one here. Usually I'll get an idea and like it'll just kind of like sit in my brain and kind of claw to come out. Like it's just in there and it needs to come out. And that's how I know that like an idea is worth pursuing. Like if I don't, like I get a lot of ideas, I'm just like, oh, and then like I'll forget about it. So the ones that stick around, I always know are like the ones that are meaningful to me in some way, even if I don't know why. And it usually is like an interesting character beat that like just popped in my head, or a question. Like Dead End Kid started with a question. Like, does the terrible stuff that happens to you as a kid end up defining who you end up becoming, or do you have any control over it? It's kind of like a determinism question. So like for me, it's just about, what stays on my radar, in spite of all the other noise that life throws in my head. And then, just like everyone else is going to say, I'm sure you just pound it out. Like, you just put it down on paper and you get it out, and you make it real. Like, it's not as hard as it feels in practice.
I like the idea that you're starting with big dramatic questions, big thematic questions. I mean, I think that that's very good advice. I think that too often the thematics come very late in the process for people, and that usually ends up being usually ends up being a really shitty experience when they kind of tack them on at the end. The idea of the seeds of the idea being those thematics and those big questions, I think is a good thing. Where are you at, Sean?
So, sorry, there's things going on in the private chat that are making me laugh.
I'm watching the live comments, so I'm not.
That's okay. In terms of, I would say I'm somewhere in between both of those. Like, collaboration. My background's theater, so collaboration's like really heavy. So a lot of times it is coming from the artist. With Ben and Saints, we were literally working on a theater production, and we were like joking around at one point, painting a set about what would we make a comic book about. And we were just like, what if we just like redid the Bible told by like atheists, and they were the X-Men, and we just kind of like ran with that idea. But I think like kind of what Frank's saying, like a lot of times for me, it starts from me presenting a challenge to myself. Like The Few was very much, I found Hayden's art. So this is where it's the mix. I found Hayden's art and I was like, this is fucking so cool. Like, I got to work with this guy. I got to figure out a story that works for him. And what do I want to write about? And I was like, I kind of want to do like a big sci-fi action movie that's really, really insanely quiet. That just like, and then because I didn't feel like I had really seen that. And so like each of the books I've done has kind of been a new challenge. So the Coyote started very much with finding Caitlin. It's usually I find an artist and I get really excited by them. And I saw Caitlin's work and it was very similar. I was like, oh, her expressiveness and emotion is unlike other artists I've worked with. And then I was like, okay, what's the next challenge? And I'm like, well, I haven't done anything in like a Neil Gaiman magic realism type world. So what's the story that I do about that also deals with like current politics? That's the challenge. So it's usually both. I usually find an artist who I'm really blown away by, and I have to write a story for them. And then as I'm working on a story for them, I start going like, all right, so I don't get bored. Like what could I fail miserably at? It's kind of like really what I end up asking myself is like, how could I really fuck this up? And that's kind of the jump.
No, it's great. I feel like I'm missing stuff in the private chats. What was I going to say? I feel like I love this idea of finding a world that you sort of fall in love with, and just having to kind of set I've experienced that before, where I remember meeting musical artists and sort of falling in love with that, and being like, I have to. There's a movie here. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen to this music, and I'm gonna walk in this world until I figure out what the movie is, and that's interesting. I mean, you become this sponge. You sort of soak up all of this like greatness and then spill it into something.
Yeah, it kind of gets me out of my own bullshit. Like at least for me, a lot of times when I'm like writing, I can get so down a rabbit hole that I'm not seeing all the holes I'm putting in it, and in a weird way, when like I have to enter their world first. It's weird. We start editing each other right from the get-go, which has worked.
I also love this idea. I mean, I'm so used to, okay, well, I have this finished story, and now I need to find the right person to draw it, and you never find the exact right person to draw it. You know what I'm saying? You find somebody who's good, and then you have to kind of accept that, okay, well, this is going to be a little bit different than I had originally thought, and usually it ends up being much better. You know what I'm saying? Because again, I don't have a monopoly on this shit. Normally, I set the bar this high and they come in and set it higher. But the idea of seeing an artist, sort of falling in love with that artist and being like, okay, well, I need to I need to figure out how to use this person, like to give this person something that that they're just going to knock out of the park. That's very interesting. Particularly, you see that artist being kind of underutilized because there are a ton of them out there, right? Where you see an artist that is just throwing 100 miles an hour and like they're playing fucking little league, So that's interesting. And I mean, you've with Hayden and Caitlin, I mean, you've set the bar pretty high with your artists.
I got it really lucky. I found them on the same Facebook page on the same day. So like that's never happening again.
Wow.
Like that's just never fucking happening again.
Yeah.
But,
all right. So Pepos, good David. What are your thoughts on this idea question?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, the thing that always sort of makes me decide whether or not I'm going to pursue an idea for long term or not. They talk about write about what you know, and I think that can be a little bit of misleading phrasing. But for me, it really helped with my first book, Spencer and Locke. I thought to myself at the time when I was deciding maybe I should write a book of my own, I thought, well, I don't know anything about anything except for comics. And that first felt really limiting. And then I realized, no, you could tell like a really interesting story that way. And I thought to myself, classic Frank Miller was really influential on me growing up as a reader. And I thought to myself, what would be the weirdest thing that I could throw against old school Frank Miller? And the light bulb kind of went off when I thought, oh, Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. What if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? And that kind of became the genesis of my first book. And as I started writing it, though, I realized that saying write what you know, it doesn't mean what's your expertise. It means what's your experience, what's your personal lived in, point of view on things. For Spencer and Locke, it was very much, are we defined by our scars, or can we possibly transcend them? My series Going to the Chapel was all about romance and what does a happily ever after really look like. My next book, Grand Theft Astro, is about what happens when you feel like the world has passed you by and what would you do to get back on top. And these are sort of these very, if I can find that kind of very universal human question, to a story beyond just sort of the cool high concept. I mean, the high concept is why you show up, but that human question is why you stick around. And so I feel like if I can find that kind of human angle to the story, that usually keeps me more interested and excited and engaged. And that's the thing that keeps this story from going from just being a sprint to being sort of me going for the full marathon.
Interesting. So you're echoing some of the things that Frank said there, where it's you're starting out with these big dramatic questions, and again, what is the equation I'm trying to solve with this thing? We're not strapping scenes together and strapping quippy lines of dialogue together. I'm trying to solve the Goodwill Hunting equation on the fucking blackboard with this thing, and what does that look like? I missed a question there. Simple Man's Comics says, when do we get an anthology collaboration with Gogol and Boer? I take offense to this question because
public pressure right now.
Well, you have three other creators here. I guess we don't get a spot, but any collaborations coming up, guys?
Yeah, Dead End Canto.
Dead End Canto. Wow.
Canto Kids.
Canto Kids. Nice.
He goes so dark with it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. It's all part of your evil plan.
David. He's the evil David.
I'm Middle David.
You're not even a David.
I feel like I should have Frank. I should have got David Schrader on this panel and David Avalone, and we could have just had the David's panel. That's what I should have done.
I could have had my Friday night.
Yeah, literally, Mainframe came to me and said you can do whatever the hell you want. I should have had the fucking David's panel. I mean, this is pretty good, but come on, who's the best David? Discuss.
And then like the windows just start disappearing slowly for the hour.
You can still do whatever you want. If you want me to send invites to Schrader and Avalone, we can kick whoever you want to kick off your panel.
Yeah,
it's your deal, man.
Don't joke about that because Avalone will be on in about 10 seconds. I know him with his shaved head. Avalone went down to the cue ball. He looks brilliant. Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay.
We talked about head shaving and beard growing and all that stuff on my live stream. That was
he's here in spirit.
Anyway, Yeah, right. So we're getting off topic here. So okay, so
oh my gosh, David Avalone is in the live comments right now, and he said, "I'm for real."
Is
So
he?
that's David.
Rock and roll. Nice. Hello, David Avalone. I love David Avalone. So okay. So we have established that we have the best idea since Y the Last Man. You know, whether it's Kanto or Spencer and Locke or Dead End Kids or you know, whatever, the few. So let's talk about. I want to talk about in general how you get your idea to a place where it's ready to show a publisher, but also how you specifically got your idea ready for a publisher. What format did it take place in? Were you sending art? What kind of pitch deck were you sending? You know, there are a million different right answers to this. I want to hear how you guys got these things across the finish line, how you guys got these things into, you know, Eric Stevenson's hands and so on and so on and so on. So why don't we go the other way? Pepos, why don't you hit us first?
Yeah, well, for Spencer and Locke, I did kind of the stripped down approach because I didn't know if that book was going to succeed. When the art came in, I felt really excited about it. Working with George Santiago Jr. and Jason Smith, I felt like I was going to pitch that thing to everybody out of spite. But you know, Calvin and Hobbes meets Sin City. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily go for that. And so we started out with just the first 6 pages and cover. And that is exactly the first 6 pages and cover of issue 1 that Action Lab eventually picked up. But it's not to say, I mean, I chopped that thing all over town and people, you know, they that kind of concept, it's like the Evel Knievel stunt jump of first books. You're either, whether you succeed or fail, you will be doing so loudly. You know, because Calvin and Hobbes is rightly, you know, one of the most sacred comics out there. I distinctly remember a top 5 publisher telling me it was the best pitch that he'd never publish, which I wear that as a badge of honor. But yeah, it's a lot of knocking on doors. There's a lot of failure and rejection involved. I always consider rejection to be my rocket fuel, because that's sort of my first initial gut check. I can sort of ask myself, well, is this just the book is not working out, or this wasn't the best place to pitch it? And you can kind of help figure out where to go from there. But yeah, I mean, I think finding the right collaborators to work with was kind of my big thing, and it's always sort of been my big thing for any projects I've worked on since, is you're competing against a lot of people. There are people pitching 24/7. They're probably pitching a lot faster than I do. So you have to make a book that's like undeniable. You have to turn in something that is so good. And this is where I used to disagree with Ryland a lot about this, and I've really since come to his line of thinking on this.
I'm always right.
You know, Ryland was right. You know, if you can get a full issue in the can, if you can get a full mini in the can, you know, it's sometimes it's a little more self-selecting. There are some publishers who want to be involved in that development process, but I talked with Frank about this at a con a few months ago, and he was right on the money. Where if you make that first issue, or if you make that full mini, and then you pitch it, it's the only way you're going to get a book done on your own terms. And so I've been a big believer in that if you can bank as much product as you can, it is a little high risk, high reward, but you know, if you really feel strongly about your book being done in a certain way, I think that's the best way to go about pitching it.
Well, and here's the thing: is the publishers that are going to want to pair you with an artist. You know, I think of the Aftershocks and the Booms, and
you're not going to walk on there.
You're not going to walk right in there. I mean, I had to win a Ringo Award before those guys started, you know, talking to me. So and I think that's pretty common. And so yeah, I think the more you can eliminate doubt in the publisher's mind, you know, whatever. You send 6 great pages in a proposal. You know, if they're good, you'll get bites. However, you know, there are always going to be questions. Well, okay, can they deliver us 4 issues or 10 issues or whatever? You deliver a completed issue or a completed trade or whatever. It is or it isn't. It's right there. You know what I'm saying? So if you believe in your work and your artists and everything, then that package is undeniable. And it may exclude you at a few publishers, but you're going to be in a stronger position at the other ones. I believe that. So Sean, I mean, I think your approach is not dissimilar, but I'm sure you have a lot more to add.
Yeah, I mean, a lot more to add, but also like I at times I feel like I'm the worst person for this question because the way it worked out was just really odd. But I mean, I subscribe to the full issue partially because I just we didn't know what we were doing. Ben and I on Saints, neither of us knew how you got into comics at all or what you even did. So we started out just making it for fun, and we were like, let's just make the whole issue. Like it was making us laugh when we were talking about the concept. So
David Avalone!
Whoa!
Whoa! Shaved headed David Avalone, everybody.
That's like mirror universe Avalone.
So many David.
I can't even.
Love it
There's
so
no
much.
facial hair. There's no hair. There's no hair
It's great.
anywhere.
I feel like it's like Boer and then me and now
That's
Avalone. It's like
Yeah.
we're the three evolutions of the Pokemon, but we're each losing hair.
This isn't even my final form, guys.
For the uninitiated, David Avalone is the co-creator of Drawing Blood with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles legend Kevin Eastman, and he also writes Betty Page and Elvira for Dynamite. So Avalone, yeah, one of my heroes, one of my good friends in comics, and we're happy to have you, man. I'm sure you have a lot to say here. But Sean, where are you at? I'm sorry we all got it. Yeah.
Basically, Ben and I didn't know what we were doing. We made a full issue, honestly, just for ourselves. And then when Ben finished the art for it, I read it and I was like, I think this is actually pretty good, but I had no idea how you got anyone to read it or how you submitted. So I just sent like blank emails to everybody, like even places that now I look back in Marvel and DC like would never do this. Why am I sending blank emails? But one of those cold emails was to Image Comics, and Eric Stevenson wrote back 3.5 months later and was like, hey, what's your phone number? And I gave him my phone number. He called up and he was like, do you guys want to do Saints at Image? And we just obviously were like, yes, we'll do it at Image. And then the way I've continued to pitch books, it's changed a little bit because my relationship there now has been a lot longer. The Few was the same thing. We did a full first issue and turned it in. And with Coyotes, we did a full first issue and turned it in, but never did pitch decks. And with Image, I'm honestly like with Saints, like never did pitch decks or even like Bibles or outlines. Like a lot of times all we had at that point was just the first issue. And just kind of giving it in, and then just sometimes Eric would call. Just the first issue. I mean, Eric would call me and he would talk to me about it, and I'd be like, well, this is the type of stuff I want to do with it. I mean, I will say things that definitely helped me is I had a background writing in other forms that I think made Eric think I wasn't a lunatic or just like, I mean, I've done some stuff for This American Life, and I've been a playwright pretty consistently and professionally for most of my adult life. So I think those things made Eric trust a little bit more, obviously, that it's like, okay, I think he knows how to continue to write this story, not just the first issue. But yeah, that's all we ever turned in. I never had to turn in a Bible for a pitch until Aftershock. And that was weird for me. I was like, fuck, I got to think about the whole thing, which I had never had to do before.
Screw you guys.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right, Frank, you are a hard liner on this, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
I'm not sure I'm the person to even talk about this. I have never pitched, never once.
Interesting.
Yeah. So my first book was pitched for me. Andy Schmidt from Comics Experience had sent it over to SourcePoint Press on my behalf without telling me, and they picked it up. And when I met Travis McIntyre, the editor-in-chief of SourcePoint Press, at New York Comic Con, I was talking to him, and about halfway through the conversation, he says, "What's your name?" It's like, "Oh, Frank Vogel." He goes, "Oh yeah, we're going to pick up your book." I was like, "Nah, you're having a stroke or something." He's like, "It's called Grief, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, I think now I'm the one having a stroke. So I didn't pitch Grief, and then I did Dead End Kids, sort of soup to nuts, got it done, and then brought it to SourcePoint. And like David and Sean were saying, it's kind of like the more you can offer a publisher, the easier it is for them to say yes because there's less risk. But like David said, it's higher risk for you too. So Dead End Kids was lettered and ready to go to print when I showed it to them, and it was just a real quick conversation. Like essentially they said, "Do you believe in this book, the same way you believed in Grief?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is a better book. It's a way better book." And they said, "Okay, we'll do it." And then my third book that's coming out this year, No Heroine, I didn't pitch either. I was just sitting with Travis at a convention one day. I was like, I'm thinking I'm going to write a Buffy book. He's like, "Tell me about it." And I told him like what I was thinking. He was like, "Yeah, we'll do that." So like, I mean, it's not, I don't know that I have any practical advice other than that networking pays off and like building relationships and trust. And these are things that kind of, they fall like dominoes, and the dominoes get a little bit bigger each time. If you prove yourself on one book, getting that second book becomes that much easier, and the third book gets easier than that, and so on. And to the point where eventually maybe they start asking you for stuff. Like, we're going to do Dead End Kids 2, and they asked me to do that, and I didn't. So that's about as far away from a pitch as you can get. So yeah, I don't have any 7 pages in a cover type advice, but definitely like build those relationships and make products that you think are undeniable, like things that people can't say no to, and have them as far and away done as you can.
Well, I mean, I think we're starting to see this thread go through here, where it's like you build these strong relationships, and it becomes a lot easier to do this. I mean, I remember I have a similar story, Frank, to you with Banjax. Aberrant came out, and it was a good book for Action Lab, and I remember sending them Banjax. And you're used to you send out these email queries to publishers and stuff like that, and you're used to whatever a week, 2 weeks, you get a response or something like that. Maybe you don't get a response at all. I remember sending it to Brian Seaton, the first issue of Banjax, who is the CEO of Action Lab, and I sent him it in an email, and I think 8 minutes later he responded to the email being like, "This is fucking awesome. How do we publish it?" You know what I'm saying? And it was just, I mean, he, I gave him a finished book. He looked at it. He knew me, and he knew what he was betting on. And so, and that never would have been the case like a year before, when Brian didn't know me and I hadn't proven myself to Brian. So I think that's really interesting. People get to know you, and then the doors open. So Evil David, you are, I feel like, the outlier in this conversation thus far, because you started out with a pitch deck and pages and stuff like that, correct?
Right. Yes. So it actually started way before that, because I've been going to cons and stuff. This is the advice that I give all new creators who are trying to get out there. I've been going to San Diego Comic-Con and other cons for like a decade. So I was meeting people, I was meeting editors, didn't have anything to pitch. I was just like meeting and networking, because unlike good David, rejection is horrible. It's like jet fuel, but it's like on your face. For me. So I was like, I don't want to just throw. I love Canto so much. I don't want to just throw it into the abyss, or the wood chipper, and see what happens. So I spent years before even Canto existed, like networking and figuring out who are the people I need to know and who know me. So when I have that thing, I have a list, 5 or 10 people that I want to send it to and say, this is what I'm working on. And so at cons, I would have casual conversations about, this, and I'd have some visuals on my phone, and I would be showing editors, and they would react positively to it. And I say, I'm not ready yet. It's not quite ready, but as soon as it is, I'll send it to you. And that's how we ended up getting to IDW. And it's kind of a funny story, because I think, are we calling him Medium David now? Avalone?
Well, Medium David was
evil, so I think evil is
evil. Yeah. Medium David is Gogol, and evilist David is Avalone. I mean, he's got like the super evil.
All right.
He's drinking a White Russian. He's got a suit on. He's got the Lex Luthor look going on. I think it's pretty.
I think you're like mirror universe, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So
totally, I've been replaced by my universe double. Anyway, sorry, David. You were saying
evilist David. I went to Baltimore Comic-Con like 2 or 3 years ago, and I had a table across from Ben Bishop. And we got to be buddies within 5 minutes. And he was the one who knew, who connected us with an editor at IDW. And I thought, sweet, we're going to get personalized attention for the pitch for Canto. This is going to be great. And I get an email back from the editor who says, yeah, this is great. I'll send it to the committee. And I just had the picture of the wood chipper. I was like, I spent all this time like personally networking, and here we are back in the committee in the slush pile. But when we pitched it to them, I think they actually want, for these kind of pitches, a full issue done, at least inks. So Drew had done all of the inks for the first issue, but we actually decided to do that before we went to IDW, because we loved the story so much that we were going to move forward no matter where it ended up. So we sent it over there, and it was months. It was like 2 or 3 months. We were almost signing with another publisher, and they came back and said, we want to do it. And we flipped the table and we went to IDW.
About that attitude of we're going to do this regardless, that is the golden attitude to have in all of show business. Yep. People will jump on board a moving train in a way they will not if you come to them and say, I need your permission to do this thing. Yep, and there have been times, I mean, I've produced a couple of movies. There have been times I've been like, we're supposed to start shooting in a month and I don't actually have the money, but we're just going to pretend that's going to happen. And that works better than not announcing the start date of your movie. You know,
and I think and it goes back to my fear of rejection and failure. It's if I believe in the book so much that we're going to move forward, those rejections don't hurt because they're just not seeing what I know is there. And, you know, we're all on the other side of that anxiety where we all have very successful books, critically, you know, acclaimed books where we can look back on those moments and say, we were right. Trust our instincts when we have something that we believe is going to be successful. You know, come on that train because it's moving.
My litmus test has always been if I wouldn't self-publish this thing out of spite, it's probably not worth me spending time pitching it. Because it's like if you don't love the book, you can't sell it to anybody else. Nobody's going to love your book as much as you do. So you better love it to death.
Yeah. I didn't have Ryland's success trying to be a big studio writer. And I spent a lot of time writing draft after draft for free for studio executives who promised me, no, this is the one that's going to sell. And after like years of doing that, I went, you know what? I'm no longer to write anything that I can't produce myself for under $100,000. Not that I have $100,000 lying around, but like it had to be something I was willing to actually put my money where my mouth was and do. And that was the same thing with Drawing Blood. We pitched that at a couple of places and we didn't like the deal and we self-published because, you know, and I said this when I was talking to Ryland just a little while ago that, you know, if you don't like the deal, if you don't think what you're going to get from the publisher is more than a bug in the upper left-hand corner, you know, there's not a lot to be said for it. You know, it's great to be with a reputable publisher. It's great to be towards the front of the phone book that is the Previews magazine. But if you have to do it yourself and be at the back, that works too, man.
That is good advice. So I think a natural progression here is, I mean, we are talking about pre-apocalypse pitching, right? We have been for about 45 minutes now. The shit has hit the fan. I mean, we are at this online Comic-Con right now because the shit has hit the fan in the comics business. The business is burning, right? The walls are on fire. A lot of people are hitting the reset button. People are in danger of shuttering and all that stuff. And it's scary and it's horrible. The business is going to look very different when it comes back, and how, you know, and when the fuck is it going to come back? That's a big question. So I guess general question, you know, to the panel, and just let's make this a polite free for all. If you guys can handle that, I don't know if you can. But so how does pitching look different after all this? Once we're back up and running, where are we at?
I have not pitched a direct market floppy single issue series. I've had conversations about book market because that's still working in graphic novels and that sort of thing. So,
I mean, I've spoken with a couple of people about sort of outstanding pitches. And I think kind of the general lay of the land is most publishers are, if they're not furloughed, they're working on the stuff that they had immediately committed to, but their long-term plans are still a little bit in flux. And so, I've sort of taken this opportunity, while in quarantine. I'm just trying to get ahead. I think that's the best thing that creators can do is, knowing that it's going to be a while before, you're probably not pitching for 2021 anymore. You're probably pitching for, for 2022, maybe even 2023, possibly even 2024 at this rate. And I feel like what we were saying earlier about having as much of your book together as possible, so it's the least amount of risk for a publisher. I think people are going to be more risk averse than ever, and so giving them the best pitch you possibly can once the dust settles is, I think, the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo Dave on that. Like lines at every publisher are getting shrunk right now. Like that's just fact. That's just fact.
It was already happening pre-apocalypse, and
it was happening, but even more so now. And absolutely, like I think it's more than fair to say you're not pitching for 2021. Definitely not. Like those books are already like on the move and going. Those teams are already put together. I think the best thing you can do right now, especially if you are not already in the business to some degree, like haven't had a book out, I think you've got to be frank. Like I think you've got to. I don't know you, Frank, but I think the idea of just like I'm making my whole book, I'm figuring out how to do it, I'm putting it out on my own terms. Like I think that's the way. And I think if you can figure out an interesting way of distributing it, this is a good moment for that. Because the truth is like even when it comes back, if it is 2022, God, 2024 makes me want to cry. But like even if it is 2022, the thing is you've missed basically a 2-year cycle of people getting to know your work beyond a pitch. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a book or a full thing that you can show them at the end of that, you're going to be competing with a ton of people who have books out already right now, some of which are critically acclaimed, who haven't gotten to put a book out for a year or two, right? Who can already turn and go like, yeah, but I did this thing at Vault or Aftershock or Image in 2018, 2019, and you can read all of it right now collected, and you'll be going, I got this pitch, there's a mouse, he's on Mars, and they're going to be like, it sounds great, but I don't, we're going to go with this over here.
The other advice that I just got from an editor was talking about digital comics, not like digital and print, something that's going to be in print, but just creating digital comics now. Mm-hmm. And in particular, something that might reflect, importantly, what's happening in 2020, like sci-fi, near future sci-fi, but what could be coming down the pike in 2021 as far as what our world is going to look like. What is next spring going to look like for our everyday lives, and folding that into a story that you can publish digitally with artists who are looking for work is, I think, a great opportunity to get your work out there in some format while the printers are down, while distribution is down and the shops are closed and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my our good friend Charlie Stickney had several conversations with the higher ups at Kickstarter. And what Kickstarter is saying is they right now have fewer comic projects than they ever have, all-time low. However, the number of donors to be has not gone down. The fan base is still there, still looking to donate on the website every day. And so Kickstarter is putting out like an all-out APB. Like this is literally the best time to run a Kickstarter that has ever existed. Basically, that might be hyperbole, but not as much as you would think. And so yeah, I mean, to your point, David, finding other ways to kind of get your work out there, and we've reached this point too where the stigma of doing Kickstarter has gone away. Maybe a few years ago, if your book was on Kickstarter, a publisher was going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That's not the case anymore. Charlie's book, White Ash, is with Scout Comics now. Avalone did the Kickstarter thing, and everyone and their brother wanted to publish that thing. It is that is the interesting thing. I mean, this is another panel, and Avalone, I know I cut you off, so I'll let you go. And just...
I was actually about to say the Kickstarter thing. I was actually about to and talk about how that's a smart. I think that's a smart way to try something right now and keep moving forward. And echoing what everyone else is saying is the more material you can have ready when the world comes back online, the better. Obviously, I mean, we don't want to beat ourselves up for not working hard while the world is ending, but by the same token, you know, if you were pumping out the pages before the world ended, keep pumping them out, and you'll have it. I mean, I'm in the middle of writing a thing for Dynamite, and they gave me a pencils down on it, I think about a month ago, and I have 2 issues left. But I really want to have those issues done so that when they say pencils up, I can say, here are those 2 scripts and pay me, because you know they're done. Because what the hell else did I have to do with my time for the last 3 months? But also, Sean, tell me more about that mouse on Mars thing. That sounds.
He's big. He's a really big mouse. He's just bigger than other mice. That's the main thing. That's basically what I'm up to.
Cash standing by just for that.
Yeah, and you know, building on some points that have been made, you know,
this is the art. This is all the art for it.
No, but
yeah.
Right there. Avalone is talking about pencils down at Dynamite, and you know you have pencils down everywhere. And Evil David was talking about a lot of artists being out of work and kind of just looking for anything and everything. The first thing I did when all these pencils down orders went out was I started making phone calls and writing emails. And I have I have 2 Dynamite artists drawing for me right now because you know Dynamite doesn't have any work for them. And so, you know, and so they're looking for something, and you know, and they like my work, I like their work. We've been flirting with each other for a couple of years right now, and I knew they had the time, and I wanted to be first in line. And so yeah, I mean, there's that's the way to look at it, and that's what I'm hearing kind of between the lines from you guys is that there is even though this time sucks, you know, I mean, there's a lot of trouble and a lot of strife, and you know, there are going to be a lot of casualties here that we'd rather not see. In any catastrophe, there's also a lot of opportunity, and I don't want to. Maybe I'm the evil David by saying something like that. But I think you know, I think what you guys are all saying is that we need to we all need to find a way to kind of polish this turd, right? There's a way to navigate these waters, and it takes a little more thought and a little more care. But there's a way, and I think that what panels like this and you know, I mean, we're all friends here. I mean, I think the listeners are getting that. Those watching the stream, is that comics is a team sport, right? You know, we all do this together. We all lift each other up. I was talking with Avalone about this, and I think we subscribe to the same philosophy where it's like, if a door opens for me,
just slam in his face, right?
Yes. If a door opens,
you just knock it right off.
If a door opens for me, the first thing I do is try and jam 12 of my friends through it along with me. And so, and I think that the people that subscribe to that sort of philosophy are gonna do well in all this. I think we're all gonna lift each other up. And again, that's what this con is about, right? There are people in need right now. We're raising awareness for shops and people who are kind of in trouble because of this situation. And you know, again, I try to bring it back around to the thematics. I'm tacking them on at the end like a hack, but we're doing that. So we are. I mean, this was great, and we are running out of some time here. I think we should probably just go around and let us know where we can find you, what you got going on, all that stuff. So let's start at the top with Evil David.
You can find me on Twitter at David Boer, on Instagram at David M. Boer. Canto you can find on Twitter and Instagram at Canto Comic. And coming on the pike is a Direct Comics floppy series that hasn't been announced yet that was pushed to 2021. So I know plus Canto stuff has been pushed on the line, so I know that 2021 is going to be basically the new 2020 for stuff coming out. And so, like, I think it was Pepos and Avalone said, you're pitching for 22, 23, 24. And then I'm talking about some all ages kids stuff going to the graphic novel book directly to the book market.
Cool. Medium David / Frank.
I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Everything's just my name at Frank Gogol, one word, FrankGogol. No heroine's coming out eventually. Supposed to come out in June. We'll see what happens. So far, I've heard July. So, but it's in previews now, and if your shop is taking pre-orders, I guess try.
Issue 1 is kick ass, guys. I got a preview copy. And
Mark Millar, man. It's Mark Millar.
All right. Sean, what do you got for us?
I'm
tripping here.
At Sean Chris Lewis. Bliss comes out from Image sometime in the summer, I think. And then after that, a book will come out from Vault, I think. And I'm working with Hayden Sherman on a new book that will maybe come out after that. We'll see. Thanks.
Good, David?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at PeposD. You can also subscribe to my monthly newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pepnews. And you can also follow Spencer and Locke on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Spencer and Locke. It's one word, all spelled out. And going to the chapel, it's just Go to the Chapel on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I got a few books down the pipeline, none of which have been announced yet, but haven't gotten that pencils down order yet. So hopefully 2021, 2022, things will start to trickle out.
And Evilist David.
I was in the middle of writing an Elvira series, which will probably come out at some point, but I don't know when. There also might be a Dynamite Kickstarter starting soon. That's a question mark I'm waiting to hear on. And next weekend is Alt Free Comic Books Day, and we're going to be giving away the first chapter of Drawing Blood, and we're going to actually start selling the first trade paperback of Drawing Blood digitally that weekend.
Okay, and so you're doing the Alt Free Comic Book Day on Facebook with Russell Noelty?
Yeah. I'll be there too.
Yeah, we'll be doing a Drawing Blood panel at 9 a.m. on that Saturday. I think that's May 2nd. And then offering the book for sale and giving away the first chapter, which is awesome, if I do say so myself. Art by Ben Bishop, art by Kevin Eastman, art by Troy Little. So it's a pretty amazing lineup. Forget the hack writer who gave us to draw. And all my stuff can be found at the imaginatively named davidavalonefreelance.com.
Let me plug Drawing Blood. It's great. I'm still waiting for you to allow me to shop the film rights, but that's a conversation offline. Yeah.
Yes, that is. Can there be a large mouse on Mars as part of the story? Because I think that's really got something.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think we bring that drawing in, and we'll sell it to Universal in a second.
It sells itself. Really.
Pepos, what do you have going on for Alt Free Comic Book Day?
Yeah, I'll be promoting the first issue of Going to the Chapel. We're giving that away for Alt Free Comic Book Day. And I believe I'll be speaking at 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. I'll be doing a one-on-one with Russell, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, Alt Free Comic Book Day is an event on Facebook. It has its own page. What are the dates on it? It's next weekend.
Yeah, it's next weekend, next Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, it's like 30 plus creators or something like that, all giving away free digital issues and doing AMAs. I'll be doing an AMA also. I don't have that info in front of me, and my internet is so weird right now that I'm worried that if I look it up, everything will crash again. But I will be there. We will be there. So everybody check that out. It's if you enjoyed this thing this weekend, we got more comics and more craziness going on next weekend. So join that. And Russell Noelty is a great follow on social media. He's always he's a wealth of knowledge and great information. He is a panel every day. So I am Ryland Grant. I am at Ryland Grant, as you can see, kind of down there on all forms of social media. So give me a follow. Banjax and Aberrant are available in fine comic shops everywhere, and for download via Amazon and Comixology. But you should really go to your comic shop and order it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much our time. I assume somebody's gonna kick his or her way in pretty soon. If not, there we go.
Hey,
Alec.
Awesome job, guys. That was a really great conversation.
So Avalone and I were talking about this. I don't know if you heard the stream, but I think that you won the Apocalypse Beard Challenge.
Oh,
you know
thanks.
what I'm saying? Like, because I saw you in Baltimore Comic-Con, and I think you were pretty clean cut.
I mean, maybe it was a little bit shorter, but I've had a long, I mean,
okay,
it's definitely quarantined a bit.
Yeah, but it's like there's this competitive thing going on online, like quarantine beards, and I feel like you've won. Like you've shut the competition down. I'm very proud of you.
I appreciate that. I did have a head start, so it's a bit cheating, but I'll take it.
Yeah, well, a win is a win.
Yeah,
way you get there. That's what Bill
especially
Belichick
these
does.
days.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. That was a great conversation, guys.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys.
So we're gonna take a 2-minute break here, and then just flip some people around, and we'll have the next panel up for you in just a moment. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Have feelings too.
Oh, hold on.
I share mine with you.
Should just stay on this. BRB, guys.
Jesus Christ.
This is Batman. I want to be sure you know about Mainframe Comic-Con. It'll be online the 25th and the 26th, and all the proceeds are going to the Red Cross and the Hero Initiative. So be sure to check it out.
And we're back, but we lost David. There he is.
Yes, my internet fritzed for a second.
Oh, you moved rooms.
Yes, I did. I moved to the desktop.
Looks like we're missing.
I don't think I'm on this panel.
Isn't Stickney supposed to be here?
Yeah, I'll let him go on.
All right, thanks. Nice talking to you. Okay, yeah, we should have. Let's see if I'm looking at my list here. Yeah, a couple other people. We should have your partner, David. We should have.
He's here.
Oh, Dave, hi.
How's it going, guys?
And yeah, well, if they show up, we'll add them in, but otherwise we'll get started. This is the Mainframe Comic-Con. It's the panel for the writer-artist collaboration, as far as I know, right?
Yep.
All right, writer-artist
I thought it was the
relation.
All Dave's panel.
Yeah, I'm the odd man out.
Dave's After Dark.
Yeah, it's gonna be very hard addressing each of you when I say, so Dave, what do you think about this? And you're all just gonna answer, and it's gonna be a cacophony of wonderful information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Somehow on the last panel I was on, I became Evil David, and I don't know what happened. And then I've only got to be evil
I was
David.
the most evil David.
Obviously, it's him.
Well, it's because,
clearly him,
you're wearing the suit jacket and you got the shaved head. You look, like a Bond villain.
Yeah,
In the best way possible.
I could actually grab a fluffy cat and stroke that if necessary.
Well, then that might be too. That might be too evil. They're trying to
Two on the
nail on the head.
get people to help the good causes, but
too much.
Yeah. So how you guys doing? I know a couple of you have been on for a little while, so I appreciate you doubling up here. And welcome, I guess, the good Dave Acosta.
That's right.
He's the best. He's the best Dave.
That's right. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. You want to give a little shout out about what you've been working on, what you do in the industry?
I'm a penciler and inker. I've worked a ton with Dynamite, specifically with Avalone on multiple projects. We're kind of like a team over there, which has been great. Our latest one was the Elvira series, which was super cool and a dream come true. And that ended with issue 12. And I started working on a creator-owned that hasn't been announced. But recently, it looks like Avalone and I are going to team up again on something, which I'm very excited to do. Yeah.
And that's
does look that way.
You can't talk about yet, I assume?
Can't talk about it. Yeah. Very fresh. But I think anyone that's followed what we've been doing, the last couple of years is going to be excited for this too.
Oh, there's the fluffy cat in the background.
Yes, there's my Blofeld cat right in the background. And again, this will totally give it away to anyone's paying attention, but I can tell Dave Acosta, I heard from her this afternoon.
And Charlie looks like he is in the other stream, but we're gonna take care of that and get him over here in just a second.
Please do.
So
we love Charlie.
While we're waiting for him, if anyone wasn't tuned in for the last stream, Evil David and Evilist David, two actually very nice men. Would you like to give a quick shout out about what you're working on?
You go first, Evil Dave.
Sure, yeah. So a lot of you might know me, especially if you were in the last panel, from Kanto. I'm a co-creator and the writer of IDW's series. Yeah, and I work with the artist Drew Zucker, who is absolutely amazing, and I would look forward to talking about how we find a way to work together, because I send him scripts and he tosses them out, and he sends me art. I toss that out, and somehow we make a comic. No, he's fantastic, and we have a great time. We talk nearly multiple times a day. He sends me panels in like screenshots, and we talk about everything. It's the whole process. So we have a really close working relationship, and it's been really exciting to have that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what we're here to talk about. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more. Evilist David, do you want to give a quick shout out?
Yeah, I'm relatively new to comics. I've been doing them about 6 years, and Dave Acosta was assigned to my very second book, and we had a great working relationship from the beginning. I have remembered reading something, it might have been Neil Gaiman, said, ask artists what they want to draw, if it doesn't matter to you. And the first thing we did was a Doc Savage one-shot, and I remember the location of it didn't matter to me. So the first communication I had with Dave Acosta was, what do you want to draw? The Art Deco interiors of the top floor of the Empire State Building, or a forest in upstate New York? And he said, I think I'd rather draw a forest in upstate New York. And I said, great. The story takes place at Doc Savage's crime college, not in his secret fortress in the Empire State Building.
There's no vanishing points in the woods.
Yeah.
So it's just easier.
But you have to draw a lot of leaves.
That's great. Yeah. That's easy. Yeah. Especially if it's at night, it's just all in silhouette.
Yeah, but Dave has been my number one collaborator, and I think we have a great relationship and a great collaboration with what actually ends up on the page. He shows me every layout, every inked page, and 99.999% of the time, my notes are, wow, that's great. So, I think that helps it be smooth, but he really gets my writing and what I'm going to want and what I'm going to want it to look like, and really has great input. Hey, there's Charlie.
Hey, how are you?
We did it.
Hey,
Sorry
Charlie.
about the confusion, but welcome.
Welcome, Charles.
Oh
And
man,
Connor
I
will be joining us.
should have got myself a whiskey.
It's
Yeah,
not too late.
I don't understand you guys doing this sober. That seems crazy.
Can I, David and Dave?
Oh,
And
we
there's
got-
Connor.
we got someone echoing.
Is that me?
Sounds like we're good now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So welcome Charlie and Connor to the panel. Glad you guys made it. We're just kind of doing real quick shout outs right now, talking about what you guys are working on. If you'd like to, David, Evilist David is kind of wrapping up there, but if you have anything else you want to plug, and then
let's toss over to Charlie and Connor.
Well, first of all, I just want to appreciate being led onto the panel, even though I'm a writer whose name is not David. I do appreciate that. I think like the key that we all see to figuring out who to work with is we choose someone with the same first initial as us. and then we pair up as a writer-artist. We have David and David, David and David, Charlie and Connor. So like those are the keys, the good nuggets you're going to get tonight from me.
Maybe that's why I had such a hard time finding collaborators, because it's hard to find another Alec.
Yeah, there you go. I do White Ash right now with Connor. That's being published through Scout Comics. We have another series that we are also doing called The Game, and I'm going to be having another White Ash spin-off coming out later this year.
Very cool. Connor, welcome.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to add about your work with White Ash? Anything else you're working on?
Currently, we also have The Game.
Everyone's showing off your books.
yeah.
White Ash.
And then, I mean, right now, just concentrating on getting chapter 5 out, and looking forward to that because it's looking really good. I mean, the script was amazing. I kept on reading the script over and over and over again, just because I enjoyed it so much. So I'm looking forward to getting that done, getting it in people's hands.
So I guess my first question to the panel, David Boer, you kind of touched on this briefly, is how, and David Avalone, you mentioned this as well, kind of like how you guys work together with your artists and writers and vice versa. And how much is it a back and forth, and how much is it like, here I wrote the script, now do your magic?
I guess I'll go first. And we have so many conversations prior to me actually writing the script about ideas and locations. I think Evilist David Avalone was saying about location and that sort of thing. And we have a lot of conversations before I even go to the script stage. So I kind of have an idea of what we're both thinking. I know what will drive him crazy. There was one panel I did in a recent script that I just thought, this is going to be so cool. And he and our editor both separately said, oh my God, I feel sorry for you, Drew, for having to do this. And it didn't even occur to me because I'm like, oh, this is going to be so great. But for the most part, we have a constant conversation back and forth. So the script is really, I think, the beginning, the jumping off point when he goes to layouts and then pencils. We really start hashing out specifically camera angles and things like that, if there's any notes. But for the most part, he sends me layouts and he'll send me pencils and inks. And my response is like, Avalone, that's awesome. That's great. It's just what I pictured. Thank you.
Do you ever kind of like sneak in things that you know are going to irk him just for fun?
Well, I make him draw this little character, this little tin character. And in the new arc, they're in this new society. And I'm like, every panel, there's like 5 tin people in this panel and 3 in this panel. And he just constantly messaged me, why are there so many tin people everywhere? And just be quiet and just draw it. No,
you're not paid to make words. You're paid to make pretty pictures. I'm just kidding.
I know. Yeah, but yeah, it's fully collaboration from start to finish and like every step of the way.
That's great. Dave Acosta, how do you work with David Avalone?
Usually, we don't talk about it too much. I'll pry out of him what the plot is going to be, and he'll just give me a little bit, and then I'll go, oh great, what would be cool is we do this and this and this, and he goes, yeah, okay, and then I get the script and it's never in there, but he humors me. So I get the scripts are usually complete, so there's not a lot of back and forth. But he knows what to explain in the script for me. You know, as far as like details are going to come up later, like this person's got to be short because of this joke's going to work later. Especially because we did Elvira together, and that is mostly a comedy. So a lot of that is important as far as setups, timing, so, yeah, just for punchlines later. So, but other than that, he will. He knows exactly what to tell me and what to leave out. He doesn't need to explain every panel, you know, what everyone's doing in every panel or even the camera angle. He knows that I'm just going to tailor it to the payoff of the punchline.
Now, do you find that helpful to give you like creative freedom, or do you find that sometimes that it's more difficult because then you have to kind of figure out what you're doing and you're not given the direction?
No, I would much rather have the freedom to go into whatever direction occurs to me as I'm drawing it, because it's like sometimes you get an overly descriptive script, and it's nice that the writer has thought, because the writer should have all the answers. If I need to ask David a question, he always has the answer for me. Like, is this gonna, does this relate later, or but if you get an overly descriptive script, I liken it to if you hire a plumber and just like stand over their shoulder and it's like, yeah, you should unscrew that and then try that, and then it's like, hey, let me just get under this thing
I know
and
my
we'll
thing,
figure
yeah.
out.
Right, I'm the professional here.
It's like we won't know until we open it up, so don't tell me everything.
Just want to shout out Lucky Dog Gaming real quick. Gave us a $4.99 super chat for the Hero Initiative, just because this is awesome. Good night, everyone. He also asked,
we love the Hero Initiative.
Dave Acosta. He says, "I think I went to high school with you." GECHS.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Lucky Dog.
And asked and answered.
Oh yeah. Oh hi. Okay. Well, I know what this is.
Connor and Charlie, how do you guys work as far as the collaboration aspect?
Charlie, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think one of the nice things about this panel is everyone here has some familiarity with the artist they're working with. And I think depending if you're working with someone for the first time or someone you've worked with before, you're going to approach it a little bit differently, because that dynamic is going to be different between every writer and every artist. Like David Costa was saying, some artists like more freedom to work. Other artists really like to be told, I want this in the shot. So I think it's important to have that kind of conversation right off the bat with your artist to know, because it is a collaboration. I mean, if you want to do the plumber model, you might as well write a novel. So you want to figure out what works well for the two of you, and then let it organically grow from there. And since Connor and I have been doing a lot of comics together, I'm really happy to, I break my script down into panels because I see those as beats, and the story needs beats, but I leave a lot of, I just more imply than tell him what should be in the shot, because at this point, Connor knows the world as well or better than me in some places. And then I just let him run with it. But he also has a huge document, like for White Ash, it's The Secrets of White Ash, which is a 15-page document or so that goes into character backstories and secrets they're going to play out down the road, because, it's a world that we're building together. And, the visual world building often inspires something new for scripts going forward. So it really is a collaborative process.
Right. And then sometimes there are sequences where Charlie has a really strong vision for how it should go, and that's also really good too. And I think so having the moments where you have that freedom as an artist is really good. But then if there's a certain way that Charlie knows that a sequence will work, I'm thinking of one in chapter 4 in the beginning, then that's also really good too. So I mean, I think when a writer has a very strong vision for like an overall layout for a whole page, I think that's also good to be able to put in. Like, I don't think as an artist I find that too compromising, as long as you have freedom, otherwise, right? Because sometimes if a writer is too strong in their direction, I think you can write yourself into a corner visually. Like when you try and transcribe that into a visual, there might be different solutions to the same storytelling problem that could be solved differently that might be better.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of thinking the overall idea here is that, when it's important to the story, you got, like, writers tend to use a little more detailed speak in how they write. And, like, does that help you as artists kind of know, like, okay, when I see that this panel or this page has more descriptors in it, that, okay, I know I really need to nail this because this is an important step?
For me, like, I'd say it's more not necessarily each panel by panel, but it's also this is the idea of how I want this page to work. So that could also work too. You don't necessarily say, oh well, this panel is at this angle and showing this exact thing, but it's more like, well, this is the theme that I want for the whole page. You could think of it like that.
We got a $25 super chat from ourselves, the Comic Corps. Thanks, guys.
Nice.
I'm sure probably Chad or someone generously donated that. Don't know who it is, but whoever it is, appreciate it all the same. So David Avalone, what do you think about what these other guys are saying?
Well,
about this?
I think especially once you develop trust, and I trusted Dave Acosta right away. You, as Charlie said, you tell them what they absolutely need to convey in terms of story. But everything else, I like to leave it as loose as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a film background, and it's a lot like directing in the sense that I think it's obnoxious to go up to you don't go up to the director in photography unless you're a particular kind of asshole and say, I want it on a 40 millimeter lens. I want it 8 feet off the ground. I want it exactly like this. You say, give me a close-up of Elvira.
Right. And then
give me an over the shoulder on Dracula.
Yeah, I mean,
give me a wide angle, and you don't dictate. And the DP doesn't turn to the gaffer and say, I want exactly this light. I want exactly this light. You let them. They're experts. Dave is the expert. Right. I am relying on him to visually accomplish the thing that's in the script. And to the degree that I micromanage, I think I love to help artists. I like to save time on research. So if I'm persnickety about a visual detail, every comic I've ever done, I start a Pinterest page and I fill it. Every gun someone picks up, every prop, every telephone, every car. We usually cast the faces of every character. And it's not like Doc Savage in our Doc Savage comic book. I found a great picture of Gary Cooper, old-time movie actor, with his hair slicked back. And I said, sort of this. And Dave didn't draw Gary Cooper, but it's like this
some of the features
idea. This is the basic idea, and he did it, and he did a beautiful job with it.
So basically, you're saying I want it to feel like this, and then you let them create that feeling.
And that's the, and I think Dave undervalues his own input into my work. He has helped me enormously. When I got the gig doing Elvira, I had just done Betty Page for Dynamite, and it felt a little bit like kind of it was going to be too much the same thing. And it was actually Dave that said, "No, man, this is comedy." And he did this. He sent me all of this art from like Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis comics from the 50s, and Angel and the Ape, and I went, "Oh, yeah, man, that's the aesthetic. It's a Bob Hope comic, really. And that's what I should write, and that's the way we should go with it." He also said something to me which has changed my entire career, and I don't know if he appreciates this. Coming to comics from film, I did a very cinematic style on the first 2 comics we did together, the Doc Savage and the Twilight Zone: The Shadow, where there was no narration of any kind. There were no captions. There was just sounds you would hear if you were watching a movie and images you would see if you were watching a movie. And Dave said to me, "Let comics be comics, man. Have don't be afraid of captions.
Yeah.
Don't be." And that is, it's funny because it hasn't really been that much in the work I've done with him, because Elvira really doesn't lend itself to captions a lot. We've used them very sparingly. But in Drawing Blood and Betty Page, I use a ton of captions, and that's all because Dave said, "Let comics be comics."
Yeah, so, one of the beautiful things about comics is that there's really no limitation on budget or what you can do. You can really let your imagination run wild, and that there's very few rules that you can't break.
Yes, but I've learned that while there's no budgets on things, there is the budget of a man's time.
Oh, certainly.
And Dave Acosta and Ben Bishop, who draws my Drawing Blood comic, once got in a conversation on Twitter about how I had made them both draw traffic jams.
No.
Well, you're in LA, so I guess
yeah. So and Dave,
your experience.
For Dave, it was a 2-page spread that was taking place in hell, and it was not a basic traffic jam. It was it's a 2-page spread. I wanted an impressive visual, and he did amazing work on it.
But he's like, this took me a week and a half, and I'm behind on all my rest of my stuff.
But he posted something complaining about it, and Ben Bishop was like, he made me draw a traffic jam too, man. And I was like, right, I did that. So I try to be, and once there's a scene in Twilight Zone: The Shadow that takes place. It's like a 3-page dialogue scene on an outdoor stairway, and Dave sent me the rough pencils with the horizon line, the vanishing point of every step in the stairway. And he said, I want you to think about this page the next time you write a dialogue scene on a stairway. And I went, oh. And it never occurred to me that was a thing. That
easy to write.
Yeah.
Not easy to draw.
It's 2 words. Outdoor staircase. Done.
I was going to say, like a spiral staircase overlooking a giant traffic jam. Is the thing I'm writing next.
That'll be in the next one.
Yes.
So my next question for the panel is, if you guys had unlimited time and unlimited talent, would you want to write and draw your own work, or do you find the collaboration kind of richens the book a lot of times? I'll start directly to my stage right with David Boer.
Sure. So I think it just has to do with the story. If it's something super personal, I always wished I could actually draw, because I've got stories that I want to tell that I think I could really only tell them if I drew them, things from growing up, or things that are inspired by that. So if I had unlimited talent, that's probably what I would do. But there's so many stories out there that I couldn't, like Kanto. We were talking about this in the last panel. Kanto started because Drew came to me with a very early concept drawing. Before we knew what the story is, before we knew the character, he came to me and he said, I have this character, and I kind of have an idea of the story we might want to tell, but would you be interested? And within about half a second of seeing it, I said, I don't know who he is, I don't know what his story is, but we're going to tell it because I love the character so much. So our book could not exist if it wasn't for us collaborating on it.
Yeah.
So I think for a story like that, the collaboration makes something better than the sum of the parts that we bring to it. And I guess that would be the answer to the question, would be, if it's the right story, to bring the artist and writer together to make something better than what it would have been. That's what I would do.
Excellent answer. David Costa.
I always fantasize about writing and drawing my own comic, but I would probably hate it. What I love, I do comics because I love storytelling.
Yeah.
That's more important than being like a perfectionist artist, or even have, like a cool looking style, is whether or not you can tell a story. So yeah, the inclination is always there, but the collaboration is kind of my favorite part, because it's just stuff you would never have thought of. And then you get to add things that the writer would never have thought of. And you can bring out, things in their story that they didn't even realize, and you can emphasize and reinforce. And just having another set of creative eyes on it makes it just a whole nother thing that wouldn't exist. And, with just if one person was doing it all, you're focused when you're doing it yourself, you're focused on certain things, and you can be blind to obvious storytelling choices that can amplify. So I'll probably never write my own thing. I've got too many talented writer friends like David. That's just more interesting to me to see what someone else is gonna come up with. Plus, it's easier to be the second in line. Coming up with something from scratch is the hardest part. It's easier to revise, and that's the comic artist's job, is to just, okay, let's get it going, get it on its feet, and see, what's happening. So the collaboration is what gives me that charge that I'll never get just doing it on my own.
So I'll move along to our other artist on the panel, Connor.
Yeah, I'd say, tentatively the answer is yes. At the same time, writing is like the biggest blank canvas you could like, as an artist, you could ever imagine, because it's even wider than, say, just like a blank page. So, the there's that aspect of it, and then also like even if I were to try and write something, I would definitely be like showing it to Charlie and be like, "Hey, could you take a look and see if this is any good?" So, I mean, even if I tried to do something at some point, it would never be in a vacuum. And on top of that, that vacuum would not exist because just having worked with Charlie and then worked with other writers, I mean, you as an artist, you learn so much. So I think that's much more valuable. Just doing a solo work, because I mean, I did a lot of solo work sort of by myself for a long time, and you don't learn nearly as much as when you bring like 2 or more talents to a project.
Charlie.
Well, I completely agree with what Connor said. I mean, I think, and everyone said, just the collaborative process of comics is what makes it truly special. That said, I mean, I do have a little bit of drawing skill. Well, I had my own webcomic for a while that I did. So I've done some of that. And the one thing that, as a writer, you realize by drawing things is how much time it takes. And oh my God, like if you want to tell more than one story, you can't, because you're going to be drawing this story all day long.
Going back to the traffic jam.
Yeah. It's like, so when I say, when I ask Connor to draw something, I at least have the perspective to know how long it's going to take him to do that. Because I've done it. I mean, when I was originally looking to be an inker and a writer, so I've done deep dive into, being a comic book artist. I'm not good enough to sell the work I would write and draw. Like, that's the other thing, is you have to be, I think, aware. And I know your question goes to, if you could do both at a professional level, would you? But I would say if you have the right partner, you're going to get something better out of it than if you did it alone. And as a writer, one of the things I like most is building worlds. And I won't have time to tell all the stories I want to tell if I was to put all that time into drawing this one book.
Great answers. David Avalone.
I really agree with Charlie in that, I couldn't write, at my best, I write about 2 to 4 scripts a month. I couldn't then draw 2 to 4 comics a month, and I would miss it. I used to love to draw when I was a kid. I was not good at it. My best friend in college, I think he insulted Don Heck by saying I was a third-rate Don Heck. That's very very unfair to Don Heck. He was never that bad, even a third-rate Don Heck. My dad was a novelist, and he always said his favorite thing about it was the one thing you could kind of do all by yourself and you didn't need anyone. And I feel like if I wanted to be that kind of megalomaniac, I would probably be a novelist. But I love what the artists bring to it is magic. And it's I can't describe it if you've never had the experience. It is fucking Christmas every single day. I hand a script into Dave Acosta, and once a day for the next month, I get an instant message, and I go, "Holy shit, that's fantastic!" And it's always great, and it always makes me feel good, and it always makes me feel proud of what we're doing together. And that's, and what Dave said about adding something, I have one very short example of that, which I laughed for about 20 minutes. In our Elvira comic, the 4th issue, Elvira was in the 1930s on a movie set. And she's running around a movie studio being chased by Dracula, by Vlad the Impaler. And I wrote in 100 celebrity 1930s movie star cameos. And Dave did a great job with all these likenesses. At the end of the story, I had 2 nameless, faceless studio security guards. And I did not have the interest or imagination to make them interesting in any way, shape, or form. They were just 2 red shirts. They were 2 extras. And I got the page, and Dave drew Abbott and Costello. And I could not stop laughing when I saw it. And it made it sing in a way that it did not sing when it was just 2 faceless dudes.
Yeah.
And of course, I then revised the dialogue so that their names were Chick and Wilbur, which are their character names in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
It was so obvious, and maybe it's just because we've worked together so long that I'm just like, he must have forgot to mention that this should obviously be happening.
You read his mind even when he didn't know he was thinking.
Didn't even cross my mind to make those guys interesting because I was so distracted by everything else, and it just
you would have if you would have put it in there. You would have.
Yeah, no, but again, and we have that experience a lot where if I miss a joke, Dave absolutely will catch it and make it happen.
And that's a perfect example of the collaboration really like working in your benefit. My next question is something that I think Connor said that kind of sparked this question in my mind, which is, I have tried the self-publishing game myself years ago, and I did both myself, and it was trying. And one thing I really struggled with was second guessing myself. How beneficial do you find it where if you're writing something and you send it to the artist, or the artist gets something and you send it to the writer that you kind of aren't sure of, and they come back to you and say, this is great, does it bolster you to keep going, or do you think they're just kind of like blowing smoke?
Depends on the day.
Yeah. Now it is when you have a collaborator you trust, you can do anything because you're safe. I know Dave wouldn't let us do a page together that was going to embarrass either of us.
Yeah.
And he has absolutely caught things and said, hey, did you mean? And I go, oh, shit, no, I didn't mean that at all. That doesn't work at all. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I go back and revise it.
It's like having a second editor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also why I send David layouts and pages, because in case I miss something, because I'll just start working, I'll read the script and I miss shit.
And he says,
so he'll be like,
so this is not what I intended at all.
Yeah, it's like, no, that guy's supposed to say that, not her.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, shit, yeah, okay.
I just ran an idea by Drew the other day for the script I'm working on for Canto, and he just gave me the I don't know about that. And we talked through it, and we ended up throwing it out because it just wasn't gonna work. But I felt comfortable going to him with it, and yeah, it feels really good to send a script to him, and he comes back. He's like, "Oh, this is great." But we also definitely made it to the stage where he would come back and say, this isn't working, or we need to tweak this, or we need to adjust this. Whereas if it's a new relationship with a new artist, I really feel like sometimes the artists don't know. I mean, you guys, Connor and Dave, you can talk to this, feeling whether or not you feel empowered with any given writer to come back and say, this isn't working. Beyond, this is going to be tough to draw, but more like a story. This beat isn't going to hit if it's unfolds this way, and I think that is definitely a result of having experience working with somebody, to feel that confidence to come back and say, yeah, we should adjust this, or this isn't working.
Yeah,
right.
I always try to draw. I look at every script I read, I just go, I can't draw this. There's no way. I can't picture it in my head. Like this, I can't do this. And it's not the writer. It's more like my hang up where I'm just like, this isn't going to work. And then I read through the whole thing and I go, okay, well, let me read through it again. And blah, blah, blah. So, and every time, and even when I'm thinking like, this isn't going to work, no way. I still, when I do the layouts, the first step is to do exactly what the writer wanted. If they asked for a camera angle or the same amount of panels, and if I can make it work with what they asked for, I don't change it. It's only if it doesn't work, then I'll go, okay, let's change it. I don't just do what I want to do first. I try to do due diligence and just like, let me just see if it does work. Because I honestly don't know until I do the layouts.
Yeah, I'd say for me, like the script is kind of like this brick wall that you can put your back against, and then you can work off of. So, I mean, at least as far as the scripts for White Ash go and the game, like they aren't so constrained typically where they're going to put me into a corner. So I wouldn't say that has particularly been an issue, but But it's more like, for me, even if you get into a very compromised situation with a certain like sequence, one way or another, that only means that you have an opportunity to solve it in an unusual way, to break some of your habits that you may have, as far as like bad habits go. As far as like settling into like a rhythm of certain like compositions or panels or whatever. So there's always ways to solve. I just think of it as there is a solution here. I just need to find it. And if I look through some of the books I have laying around the place, I know there's in there's like a kernel of something that's going to be able to solve this problem. You know.
I think for me, part of it is with the writing process itself. If I don't write from a place of irrational confidence, where I think that this is the greatest thing that's ever going to be written in the history of time, I'm probably not going to write it. So every story, until I'm done with it, I think, is the second coming of writing. And then if I was on my own, because I've worked in film and television, you send that script out and then there's this crushing angst of, oh, was I right? Oh no, it must have been terrible. But the difference is in comics is you write this thing and then you have this person you're going to turn to who you know is going to make it better. Yep. And so my confidence level goes up because I know whatever I wrote, Connor's going to find a way to make it even better. So he's going to pick me up wherever any of those spots were that that I couldn't say before because of my blinders. And so I just think it's about trust and having that relationship. And if you have a relationship with someone that you respect and trust, I don't think, that those pitfalls will hit you so hard because together that you're going to create something special.
It's a great point.
Yeah, for sure. You
should write comics.
My next question is for the artist specifically. When you first get a new script, you kind of just like flip through it quickly to see if there's anything you're really excited to draw, and if there is, do you just get so excited to get to that page? I know Dave Acosta, you kind of just said you don't usually jump ahead when you're drawing.
Right. I read the whole thing and then I read it again and I'll start just sketching ideas for layouts and stuff on the script usually, or these days it's mostly digital, but I'll just start sketching little ideas as I go. I always draw in order, and I feel like you kind of just have to, it helps. I know some artists just skip to what they want to draw, this is gonna be awesome, I can't wait, but I feel like I gotta get up to that part, and I definitely enjoy those pages, that's like candy. And then the other, sometimes it's like
there's some awesome cool monster you get to draw, and then there's 10 pages of just two characters shot reverse shot talking to each other.
Right.
On a stairwell.
Yeah, on a stairwell or the traffic jam below.
Yes. Those are like eating vegetables. But
it's good for you, but you don't like it.
You just got to do it. But yeah, so I always I might be weird like that, but I just always go in sequential order because I feel like to understand the story, I have to go through it as it plays out. And that's it's what makes drawing covers really hard for me. For one, you have to do them so far in advance that the story's not even written half the time. And then even if I have drawn the story, then I have to do a cover. It's like, I've been through it. I don't want to relive it. I've already lived the story.
Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely would echo what Dave's saying there, because as you go through the story, you're discovering the characters and how they feel in sequence. And so even if you wanted to jump to that sequence, the emotional payoff for why that is such a cool page, you have to build up to it. You can't just jump to all the cool stuff. You can't just eat dessert first, I feel. For me anyway, for how I like to tell stories. So, and then also, it's just a matter of, I like getting to the vegetables of the story, using the food analogy from before, because that's how you earn those pages. So yeah, I definitely want to experience the story as it unfolds, because that's how the reader's going to experience it. So you also want to be able to put yourself in the reader,
even if of course their journey with them.
Right. Even if of course you've read through the whole script a few times. And I'll also echo what Dave's saying is that I'll have a printout and I'll make drawings of every single page, and like try and get a rough idea of like what I want the panel layout to be and that kind of thing. Just have it on the side, and then that way when I'm going to even a digital page, I've got some kind of frame of mind of reference to like go through.
Very cool. So we got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to kind of turn it over to you guys if you would like to share any other insights, any nuggets, any cool stories, or if you just want to plug what you're working on, where people can find your work in this time that we're stuck in our homes. Start with David Boer.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at David Boer. You can find me on Instagram at David M. Boer. You can find Canto at Canto Comic on Twitter and Instagram. This is the trade for the first arc that just came out.
I have that.
On March 25th, believe it or not, which is the very last new comic book day for the foreseeable future. So it was like Indiana Jones, and we like slid it under the door.
Grabbing his hat as he went.
It didn't get everywhere, but we got some Canto that's coming. The second arc and a one-shot are slated. They were slated for mid-2020, so we'll see when they eventually get to come out. And yeah, that's about it. So
very cool. Dave Acosta.
Comixology has a bunch of digital bundles with Avalone and I's stuff, so you can get the first Elvira trade, I think, for like $4 or something.
Yeah, it's the price the price of one issue right now.
Right. Yeah. So people can check that out. And then I'm at Twitter and Instagram is Dave Draws Good. So check out my stuff there, I guess. Yeah.
I'm at davidavalonefreelance.com. That has links to all of the other stuff. Dave and I are actually working on an 8-pager for an anthology that I'm excited about and relevant to this conversation. It's one of the first 2 pages I full scripted, but we talked about it, and I actually went a little Stan Lee and Marvel style for the last 6 pages after asking Dave if he was interested in that. So 6 out of 8 pages are, here's what happens. Yeah. Make it fit in 4 to 9 panels if you can, which should be a fun challenge, and I'm really curious to see how that and it's a dream project of mine, actually, that I'm using this anthology as an excuse to launch that project and sort of try it out and make a presentation piece, which maybe we can use to launch a creator-owned series down the pike. Right. And again, hopefully Dave and I will be returning to Elvira sometime soon.
Let us hope. Charlie.
All right. So last little nugget, I would say if you're a writer who's watching this, who's looking to break into comics, when you're doing your first script, don't try to be Alan Moore. Don't try to dictate every piece of information, the thing that you see in the panel, because the majority of artists will feel so micromanaged that they won't want to work with you. And the key to breaking in as an artist is finding artists who want to work with you. So I'm Charles. You can find me at Charles Stickney at Twitter because Charlie Stickney was taken. Right now I'm doing White Ash with Connor. And this is actually still coming out through Scout Comics. Scout Comics is still distributing, even though Diamond is locked down. And they've got a thing going where if you put the memo line of your shop, they'll make sure your shop still gets half of the profits, just like if you were to buy it from their shop.
Very cool.
We have Connor and I do things through Scout. We also do things on Kickstarter. We're going to have a couple more issues of the game coming out on Kickstarter later this year. I've got a White Ash spin-off series called Galarian that's going to be coming out later this year as well. And I'm actually working for another company called Immortal Studios that's going to be launching a new series later this year as well, probably in June, and I'm really excited about that as well.
Very nice. And Connor.
Yeah, I'm at Connor Hughes on Twitter and at twitch.tv/Connor Hughes. If you want to check us out, it's a live stream service. If you haven't heard about Twitch, basically you go down there and you can check us out as I draw White Ash live on your home screen. Whatever.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Last question for the artists: are you guys taking commissions or anything? Or are you totally booked up right now? If people are interested.
Yeah, I'm taking commissions. Just get a hold of me, DM, email or davedrawsgood@gmail.com. Yeah, always open and I'm thankful that I have projects to be working on while everything's kind of shut down. But yeah, commissions are always welcome.
Buy some original Dave Acosta art because it's amazing.
Oh, my next one actually is I have to do a Betty Page sketch cover.
Nice.
So
I don't even have one of those.
Well, maybe someday.
Connor, you taking commissions at all right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. So you can hit me up at Connor the artist at gmail.com, and yeah, it works for me out.
Got a lot of love for the creators in the chat. Christy, who I believe is a guest tomorrow, says Kanto is rad. TJ says I'm officially a Kanto fan now. David Avalone, you need to draw a pinhead. That would be some shit.
I saw that.
So a lot of great people excited to see your stuff or have seen your stuff in the chat. So we do need to end this stream so we can start a new one. And I appreciate all of you guys for being here. This was a great conversation. Thank you for being a part of Mainframe Comic-Con, and keep up the great work. And we'll see you all soon. And
thank you very
much for having us.
Everyone else, hop on back in just a minute. We're going to start stream number 4, I believe, and go into the late night, the witching hours.
All
so
right.
Thanks again. See y'all soon. Thank you very much, panel. Great job.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Stay safe.